Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Now, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we save time to take some live questions. But here on Open Mic on the weekends, that's all we do is just take all your Open Mic stuff. And want to mention this here just really quick. So last night, as Ann and I often do on the weekends, we drove out to Riverside, Corona, Riverside area, California, which is where Ann's family lives. And we hang out there, and we're most of the time, sometimes we have our dogs here. Most of the time we keep them out there. So we go see our dogs and stuff like that. And we're hanging out with Ray in the evenings, like 10 o'clock at night. And we're not doing much. Ann's working on a laptop. I'm fiddling around with some stuff. Ray's doing some stuff. So we have the TV on. And we just landed on a channel that had The Office on. And it was running like The Office episodes, one after the other, after the other, after the other. Oh my God. I know I talk about The Office all the time, and I love The Office. But it's been a while since I sat down and watched like 5 episodes of The Office back to back to back. My God, that show is funny. Oh my God, that show's so funny. I enjoyed it so much. Anyway, guys, we got a bunch of things that you guys have been firing in here to talk about here today. So let's not waste any more time and get right to it. And we're going to start off today's show with a question from Virender Singh, who writes, "Hey John, have you been following the Women's World Cup? Sadly, no. Did you know Canada is qualified for the next round? Also, did you know the 2026 Men's World Cup is being hosted by the USA, Canada, and Mexico?" I did know about that. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. As a sports fan, I feel stupid saying this. I don't really follow soccer at all. The only time I've ever really gotten around to following or watching soccer at all is, or a footy as some people like to call it, is when the Men's World Cup is going on and Italy's in. Canada's never in, so I never really pay attention. And I get a little bit interested if the USA is in. But for the most part, it's when Italy's in. Then Italy wasn't even in the last one. And that's about it. That's about the only time I watch soccer during the year. And I'm not bad-mouthing soccer. I think soccer's a tremendous sport. It's just not one that I really follow or pay a lot of attention to, and maybe I should. But, you know, like every bandwagoner in the world, when the World Cup comes around, I break out my Italian flag and I wave my Italian flag, even though the damn Italians, Forza Italia, didn't even make it last year. Hopefully they will this next time around. So no, honestly, I haven't been following it much. Other than the story about, you know, the U.S. winning their first game 13-0 or something like that. I haven't really followed it that much. So, and I'm sure my enthusiasm will rev up as we get closer to 2026 when it's going to be coming and playing on our home soil. I'll probably get a little bit more worked up then, but for now, honestly not paying too much attention to it, I must confess. All right, Virender follows up with a really generous super chat. Thank you, Virender, who writes in, "Have you seen Asif Kapadia's documentary films like Sina and Amy in 2015? They are really good, and there's a new one out called Diego Maradona, the famous Argentinian footballer, my all-time favorite player." I have seen several of his films. Amy, the one about Amy Winehouse, is actually quite good. And it's weird because I wasn't even an Amy Winehouse fan. Well, let's be honest with you. I don't dislike Amy Winehouse. I never did. But I was not one who counted myself as an Amy Winehouse fan. But I found the documentary fascinating. It was both humanizing and demystifying, and it did a really, really good job. I never saw the one, Sina, which I believe is, if I'm even pronouncing it right, it's based on the Formula One driver. The kid who died way too early, but it's based on the Formula One driver. I never did watch that one. However, he has another film he did, I believe it's called The Warrior. Maybe it's just Warrior, but I believe it's just called The Warrior, which is a pretty good classic kind of tale. You know, a henchman for a big bad guy decides not to be a henchman anymore and now is at odds with the big bad guy sort of thing. That I saw that one a number of years ago and I actually quite enjoyed that one. So while I'm not super familiar with tons of his work, I've seen a few of his films and I gotta say I like everything I've seen. I didn't even hear about the one on Maradona. I didn't even hear about that one. So this is the first time I'm hearing about that one, but a couple of the other ones I have seen, and I've always quite liked them. So anyway, there's that. Thank you for writing in. All right, let's move on here now. Jersey Kid writes, "Saw Lego Movie 2 yesterday. It's a solid movie and I still prefer the original, though I think right now my ranking is this. Number 1, Lego Movie 2, Lego Movie. Number 2, Lego Movie 2. Number 3, Lego Ninjago. And 4, Lego Batman." I'll tell you what, Mine is kind of similar, except, well, maybe not all that similar. Other than the fact that the Lego Movie, I would have that at number one as well. The Lego Movie, I believe, is the best of the bunch. Lego Movie 2, I'm not nearly as big on as you are. Lego Movie 2, I was actually quite disappointed with. That's not to say I didn't think it had some very good upside and it didn't have some really good moments. I just felt overall I was kind of let down for it. My personal ranking would be Lego Movie, very closely followed by Lego Batman. I loved Lego Batman. I was stunned how much I liked that movie. And I thought that was a mistake. I thought making that movie was a mistake. And considering nobody went to go see it, maybe it was. But that movie is awesome. I just love Lego Batman. So I would go Lego Batman. Sorry, let me rephrase. I go the original Lego Movie. Then I go Lego Batman. Then I go Lego Ninjago. I actually enjoyed Lego Ninjago. Another one that I thought it was a mistake to make, and again, nobody went to go see it, but I thought that one was pretty good too. And then not horrible, but pretty disappointing to me was Lego Movie 2. That's how I would run it out personally. But it's worth seeing. If you're a fan of the Lego movies, you should check out Lego Movie 2. Again, just for me, I was just a little bit let down by it, even though it had some pretty good moments. All right. Tony Hurd writes in. And Tony Hurd writes, saw Booksmart for a second time, and even though it's still early, it's going to be in my top 5 this year. As of right now, Booksmart, Tony, is still my number 1 film of the year. It's still my favorite film of the year as of this moment. That will probably change as more and more films come out. Lego Movie, Toy Story 4, and Lego Movie, Lion King, Toy Story 4, others that are coming this year. But as of right now, Booksmart is still my favorite film of the year. It's still early. It's going to be in my top 5 this year. And something that I really liked was there was no bad kids. No one was mean to be mean. See, that is one of the things that when I'm watching Booksmart, like when I was in high school, yeah, we had some dicks, but there was nobody evil in my high school. You know, there was no bad guy in my high school. There was no villain in my high school. Yeah, there were a few people that could be dicks and all that kind of stuff. Yes. But for the most part, my high school experience was pretty much, it was just a mix of just kids. We were just kids. And just a mix, and some of us all of us were just still trying to figure it out and figuring out our own personalities. And some of us were more dickish than others, but all of us also had good sides and blah, blah, blah. And that's why when I reviewed Booksmart, one of the things that I said coming out was that this was the first kind of like high school movie where it felt more like my high school experience. Even though Booksmart is telling it from the point of view of 2 girls, it still felt more akin to my personal high school experience. Like, there were guys in high school that I thought were jerks, and then like by my second year or third year, I realized, oh, they're actually not jerks. They're actually just guys like me, and they're just figuring it out. And I kind of like that aspect. It's not my favorite aspect of Booksmart, don't get me wrong, but it is one that really stood out to me as I was watching the movie, and it just felt more true to home for me. And I remember Olivia Wilde was talking about that, saying this is what my high school experience was like. Now, I'm sure not everybody had their high school experience like that, but that's the first one I saw that was more likened unto mine. Like, Superbad is funny, and I like Superbad, but that wasn't my high school experience at all. And anyway, I just love that movie. I'm glad you saw it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it too. It's also ripping hilarious. And Carrie Fisher's daughter, Billie Lourd, steals every scene that she's in. I just thought she was hilarious, and so I love this one. I'm glad you enjoyed it too, Tony. All right, let's move on here. Tyler Van writes, how did Milo Ventimiglia introduce you and Anne? Well, I mean, properly speaking, he didn't introduce us. He didn't walk her up to me and say, Mr. John Campea, this is Anne Orr. I'd like you to meet. No, see, I was just really quickly, A couple of buddies of mine, Mark Neveldine, Brian Taylor, were writers and directors and producers. They were doing this new movie called Pathology that Milo Ventimiglia was starring in. They asked me if I would get a bunch of my other online film pundit buddies together and throw a big rap party for the wrapping and the completing of Pathology. I said, sure. Milo Ventimiglia had an online social network he had called the Divide Social Club at the time. And he invited 5 or 6 people from the Divide Social Club who lived in the LA area to come to this big rap party of his new movie. Ann Ora, now Ann Campea, Ann Ora was one of those people. And so he brought her along to that party, and that's when I met her. And it's actually, I would think it was Mark Neveldine was the guy who actually said, "Oh, John, this is Ann," and like he was the one who actually introduced me. So Mark and Brian and Milo were all responsible for me meeting her. They had me throwing the party. Milo brought her along, and that's where I met her. And then the next day, I was doing doing my live call-in show. And Ann was one of the people, and Milo was on my call-in show, and Mark and Brian were on my call-in show. And Ann called in, and that's how we first exchanged contact information. And we've been together ever since. So that's how it all happened. Thank you for asking, Tyler. All right, Daniel Weissy writes, in his review for Men in Black International, Dan Muir called it cinematic beige. I'm stealing that. It's not a bad description. Again, I didn't think Men in Black International is bad. I don't think it's bad film. It's just not good. But it has its moments and all that kind of stuff. I just kind of walked out thinking, didn't bring anything else to the table. That's not a bad description for it, Daniel. All right, Tyler Van writes, I wonder if Sam Raimi will direct another movie anytime soon. Hasn't made one since Oz the Great and Powerful in 2013. Hope your day is going well. My day is going well, actually, as a matter of fact. The better question, Tyler, is is Sam Raimi going to direct another movie? He is kind of announced to be doing 2 more movies. I think one is called World War III. I think he's got that one on the books. And then he's got another one on the books that I can't remember that he is scheduled right now to direct. Now, even though he hasn't been directing a lot, by the way, since he did Oz the Great and Powerful, which I liked, by the way, I like Oz the Great and Powerful. I think it's a fun little movie. He has still been directing. He's directed a short film. He directed a bunch of television episodes. So he's still been kind of active, but he's been very active as a producer. He's produced a number of the films you've seen in the last few years. So it seems like he does have more movies on the way that he's going to be directing, but he has been very, very active as a filmmaker, just more as a producer and as a writer along the way. So let's see if he actually does make these next 2 movies he's got lined up, which he's supposed to be doing. So let's see how that turns out. I like Sam Raimi a lot. I dig him quite a bit. All right. Luke1234 sends in a really big super chat. Thank you so much for that, Luke. I appreciate that, man. And Luke writes, when you interview for a co-host, do you record these interviews or have a third party present? I only ask because how do you know that a female who interviewed and didn't get the job may not #MeTooYou out of spite? Be careful, JC. Well, I mean, look, that's always been something that I've been, on the one hand, cautious about, and on the other hand, straight up paranoid about. Like, ever going back to, like, even, hell, movie blog days, when I was just bringing on one or 2 people to work with me. It's always been like that. And actually, what I would often do with when I was at AMC, when we were interviewing hosts and reps and stuff like that, what I would often do is I would make it a 2-interview process. I would have like the candidates show up, and the first people they would meet, like I remember back in the AMC days, would be Dennis and Amy Rose. And I would have Dennis and Amy Rose interview them first. And then Dennis and Amy Rose would send them into if Dennis and Amy Rose, after they interviewed them, would send them into the next room, which is where I was, and I'd interview there. Look, at some point, whenever you work with anybody, at some point you're going to be alone with them. At some point, just don't plan your interview to be a one-on-one interview on a 3-day retreat to Las Vegas. You just got to be smart about it. And normally when I would interview people, I'd interview them for like 10 minutes, right? And yes, part of that 10 minutes would be filmed. Not the interview part, but I would always have them do a screen test. So I would sit down and talk to them for about 5 minutes or so, and then I do a screen test with them And there would always be other people in the building, maybe not directly in the room, but there would be other people in the building and stuff like that. So I think moving forward, like if I had to do more if I had to do interviews with people, I think that was any more than like 10 or 15 minutes, I then generally would have another person in the room with me or do it in an open room. That's the other thing. Like meet with them in my office, but have the door open. Or something along those lines, or do it, there are sometimes I would book and this is a real thing you can do in Hollywood. You can book an audition, you can book audition space. And there are these buildings in Hollywood where all it is it's big waiting rooms with a bunch of individual audition rooms. And what I would do is I would book those rooms. I would book a room at one of these big audition buildings where other people would be auditioning other actresses in other rooms. And they would just come there. So it's a full building. Yes, they'd be behind a closed door with me for 5 or 10 minutes, but nothing can happen in that point of time. And a bunch of it would be filmed as well. But at the same time, here's the thing. At the same time, as a Canadian, you heard the stereotype, Canadians don't lock their doors. Never once locked my door in Canada. In the US, we lock our doors. In Canada, I never locked my door. My family never locked our doors. I choose to live by the notion that people aren't inherently assholes. I just tend to live by the philosophy that, not everybody is looking to break into my house. There might be some people out there who are. I choose to live by a worldview that I don't believe everybody out there is a prime jerk. And that includes people, be they men or women, that I interview for jobs. I just go on the belief that they're not prime jerks. Now, again, if I had to sit down in an hour-long process with a complete stranger of a woman, yeah, I would have either open door or somebody else in the room with me. But for 5-10 minute interviews where part of it's going to be filmed, I generally don't believe that people who are coming in for these interviews are just stalkers going, who can I get in a Me Too movement thing? No. I don't believe that's statistically a real thing. And beyond that, I think worrying about something like that undermines the actual Me Too movement. Like the Me Too movement is... And I don't want to go into something that I have no basis of authority to really speak to. But the Me Too movement, a lot of it is not based on, somebody met with somebody for 5 minutes and something happened. It's based on, usually most of the Me Too stories I've heard have been surrounding the notion of somebody they've already known and worked with and whatever, and whether it's a Bob Weinstein or a Harvey Weinstein, whatever, and others. So I just never really worried about it. But like anybody else going back to movie blog days, I take certain precautions. If it's a quick, short interview, like a first interview sort of thing, there's a bit of a camera test, I don't worry about it. If it's much longer than that, then maybe I take some other precautions. But anyway, that's just me. I mean, a lot of times too, when I've had to interview for the John Campea Show, like for instance, when Ashley Whalen was hired, I had her come into the studio where there was a bunch of people. And while I would be sitting in an area alone with that person, it was an open area where there were other people in the studio as well. And it's not behind closed doors or anything like that. Or sometimes when I'm like, sometimes I'd hire an assistant. What I would do is there's a local outdoor patio restaurant place here, and I have them meet me at the outdoor patio restaurant. I won't have them come to my home. On a first interview. Like I'll take a little precaution like that. I won't have them come to my home where it's just me. I'll have them go and meet with me at a place called, what's the name? It's a hookah bar, actually. It's a hookah bar and restaurant, and they got a great outdoor patio. And why am I forgetting the name of it? I just know where it is and I always walk there, and now I'm forgetting the name of it. But I usually just have them meet me there. And meet on an outdoor patio at a restaurant and stuff like that. And so if I'm interviewing assistants, I'll usually go there. But anyway, that's the type of thing. Bottom line is, Luke, don't adopt a philosophy in life where you think everybody is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Understand in life that you may come across the odd wolf in sheep's clothing, but I choose not to live my life under the assumption that everybody's a wolf in sheep's clothing, just waiting to be evil. I don't know. That's just me at any rate. Okay. NPE94 writes, Thoughts on the Batman? Is 6 villains too much? I've been asked that question about 20 times. I have been asked this exact question about 20 times in the past week or so. Here's the two things to keep in mind. Number one, there has been no confirmation that there are 6 villains in the Batman. Can we be clear about that? I just saw another video like yesterday titled "The 6 Confirmed Villains in Batman." I'm like, what? They haven't confirmed. Have they confirmed that there are 6 villains? And I go to watch it, and I'm not going to throw the YouTube channel under the bus. So I go and I watch the video, and the first thing the host says, so here are the 6 confirmed villains we have for Batman. And then the very next thing they say is, now we should point out that the studio hasn't confirmed that these are in there, but we've heard that these are the 6 villains. It's like, guys, that's not what confirmed means. Confirmed means the studio says this is what something is. When the studio says it, or the director or whatever, then it's confirmed. People do not know how to use the word confirmed. All right? We can hear reports, even if it comes out of like the Hollywood Reporter or whatever, we can hear reports. We can say, hey, this is what it looks like it's going to be. This is what the reports are. But when you say confirmed, that means it's a 100% lock. And until the studio or the director says it, it's not confirmed. So I just found it really funny that I'm watching this video yesterday and it says, here are the 6 villains that we know are confirmed for Batman. Now we should point out that these haven't been confirmed by the studio. Well, then it's not confirmed. Anyway. But let's go on the assumption for a second that they do choose to have 6 villains. Who cares? You know, Infinity War had like 8 villains. I mean, just because there's a villain in the film doesn't mean that they're all going to be given big prime screen time and it's going to be too much to fill up the screen. Like Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, right? Did you remember that Scarecrow is in that movie? He's only in it for a minute, but Scarecrow is in the movie. Scarecrow is one of the villains in the movie, but he's only in there for a minute, so it's not a big deal. You go back to the first X-Men film. You had Magneto and Sabretooth and Toad and Mystique, and I'm sure there were a couple others. So there's a bunch of villains right there. But really, the villain was Magneto. So everybody gets too worked up. If you go to X-Men, a couple of the other X-Men films, if you actually go down the list, there's probably 6, 7, 8, 9 villains. But that doesn't mean they're all being used and given equal screen time and convoluting the story. No, a lot of them will probably play just very small, minor roles. So even if 6 of the characters in the new Batman movie are recognizable villains, that doesn't mean that it's going to be overcrowded with villains. It probably means it'll still just focus on 1 or 2 villains as main villains, and then on the periphery we'll have a couple of other recognizable villains that won't really play a major part in the film. That's how I'm kind of assuming at that point, because that's normally how it works out. So at this point, we don't even know that there's going to be 6 villains in the film, let alone what their roles are going to be. So I'm not going to worry about it in the absolute least. Look, Matt Reeves is a good filmmaker. He knows what he's doing. And look at Planet of the Apes. There's about 50 villains, right? But it's not really. So let's trust him for now. Okay. O+98 writes, despite Batman vs. Superman didn't meet expectations, it seems Snyder and Affleck had a good working relationship. Do you think they could work again in the future? Well, here's the thing, O+, I have no idea if they hate each other or not. I just don't know. I have absolutely no idea if Zack Snyder and Ben Affleck are on speaking terms. I don't know if they're each other's best friends now. I've never seen any of them comment post Justice League about working together or talking to each other or anything like that. I just don't know. I don't know that their relationship is bad. I don't know that their relationship is good. So I really have no idea. I have a feeling, though, that, look, working together, and by the way, I'm somebody who likes Batman versus Superman, by the way. I don't care if you like it or not. I do. I like Batman versus Superman. I don't think it's great. I think it has its problems, but I like Batman versus Superman. Anyway, and I like Justice League. Shoot me. I like Justice League. Again, I acknowledge the problems in it. I can totally see why there are people who don't like it. That's all cool, but I liked it. But despite the fact that I liked it, the reality is that Batman vs. Superman and Justice League represents, for Snyder and Affleck, some of the most traumatic filmmaking things they've ever done. I mean, they took so much backlash, both of them took so much backlash for these films, and that came when they were working together on stuff. So could they work again in the future? It's possible, I suppose, but again, I have nothing other than pure guesswork on that because I don't know what the nature of their relationship is right now. I don't know if they hate each other. I don't know if they love each other. I don't know if they'd want to work together again, considering they had some traumatic stuff happen as a result of working together before. I don't know if they'd be superstitious that way. I have no idea. So all I can really say to that is anything's possible. Anything's possible. But I like Ben Affleck and I like Zack Snyder. So, I mean, I'd be down for seeing them work together again, but who knows? All right, the Megan Young Show writes, "Hey John, do you watch Black Mirror? If you do, what do you think of season 5? If not, I recommend starting with USS Callister, San Juanipero, and Playtest." Okay, so I do not watch Black Mirror. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I've seen one episode, and I think the episode is San Juanipero. Now, if that's the one, I believe Mackenzie Davis is in it, where two women meet in a virtual world and fall in love, and then they get together outside of the virtual world. One is dying. Anyway, I don't want to give it all away in case somebody hasn't seen it yet. I loved that episode. I thought that was a fabulous little story. And I keep hearing tons of people talking about that USS Callister episode as well, but I haven't seen it. So I've only seen one episode of Black Mirror, and I loved it, but I've never seen any of the rest of them. And I'm hearing, I don't know, Robert Meyer Burnett comes in here every day. I feel like every day he comes in complaining about the newest episode of Black Mirror. I haven't seen any of it yet, but it feels like he's complaining about season 5 all the time. But again, I can't speak to it myself because I've never watched it. But at some point, because I did love the one episode I've seen, at some point, I'm going to have to sit down and just watch Black Mirror. You know, anthology shows usually aren't my bag. I'm not really big into the concept of anthology shows. I like following a show. But everybody's raving about Black Mirror. I've loved the one episode I've seen, so at some point I will get caught up on it. All right, thanks a lot for asking, Megan. All right, the Jersey Kid writes, what is this rumor? Warner Brothers wants James Gunn to direct Justice League as well as shepherd DCU. Isn't he already helping Marvel with the cosmic side? Anybody can start I pay no attention to rumors like that. Look, would Warner Brothers want James Gunn to do something like that? Sure they would. He's a great filmmaker. Why not? But are they? I don't know. Who cares about anybody can start a rumor. We've seen so many times these ridiculous rumors going around that had absolutely no basis in reality, and it turns out they had no basis in reality. So I wouldn't even worry about it. But just theoretically speaking, Jersey, nothing is stopping him. If he wanted to do that, there's nothing stopping him from doing it. Like, they brought him back to direct Guardians 3, but for all we know, that's going to be the last thing he does. As far as shepherding the Marvel cosmic side, well, that was something he was doing before all the drama last year. I haven't heard anything official that says whether he is or isn't doing that anymore. I have not heard anything about that. Nothing official. Certainly nothing from James Gunn himself. So, I mean, look, theoretically speaking, there's nothing stopping James Gunn from doing Suicide Squad, then going to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and going, there, I got to finish Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Now I'm going to move on from the MCU. And who knows, maybe he becomes the shepherd of the DCU. I don't know. But listen, right now the DCU has a shepherd. His name's Walter Hamada. And you know what? He's doing a pretty damn good job. So maybe Walter Hamada wants to bring on James Gunn as his right-hand man. I don't know. But right now things are going pretty well for the DCU. They've got a couple of wins in a row here. Aquaman was great. I don't know that Aquaman was great, but Aquaman was really good. I really liked Aquaman. Shazam was great. I loved Shazam. And of course, we got Patty Jenkins bringing us Wonder Woman 1984. So a lot of things to be excited for. So I don't know that they need a new person to run things. Unless he's going to be working for Walter Hamada. So we'll see. Theoretically speaking, it can happen. I just wouldn't worry about all these ridiculous rumors that go around just yet until we hear something from Gunn himself. All right, Virender Singh writes, one of two. As a society, Do you think we are moving more and more towards hard-hitting and edgy TV programs? Don't get me wrong, I love stuff like Daredevil and Game of Thrones, but I miss things like Highway to Heaven, The A-Team, or Quantum Leap, etc. Programs that we could watch with all generations of our family without having to worry about F-bomb drops or nudity. Well, I mean, there's still lots of that out there. I mean, like, look, Daredevil is a Netflix streaming thing. Game of Thrones was an HBO streaming thing. There's still lots of stuff on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, CW, blah, blah, blah. There's still lots of that. And these, what sometimes I refer to as extracurricular programming bodies like HBO, they've been around for decades. You know, since Sopranos and The Wire and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, and the thing is, on Netflix and HBO, you can do that sort of stuff. So that's kind of what gives them their more unique appeal, is that that's their really differentiating mark, I should say, between the general and the average broadcast networks like ABC, CBS, NBC, blah, 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 is that they can't do that stuff. So you get Netflix and HBO, they can do that stuff, and it really differentiates them from the other networks. But the other networks are still there, and they're loaded with programming, and there's tons of stuff there to watch. So what I would suggest, Virender, is that, yes, there's more stuff like, you know, Game of Thrones, more edgy, more adult-leaning stuff coming out there, but that's because there's a demand for it. But there is still plenty of other programming there as well. I would still go so far as to say the majority of programming is still totally safe, because the majority of the programming is on the major networks. So I think what we're seeing is a growth in the edgier stuff, because that's a growth area, but I don't think it's to the detriment or the diminishment of the other stuff. But anyway, I could be wrong. I don't watch a hell of a lot of TV, but that's just kind of the way I see it right now. It's an interesting question though, Virender. All right. Yusuf Alvi writes, why did Ben Affleck leave Batman? No one says why. I mean, everybody's got their theories, but only Ben and Walter Hamada know. Only Ben Affleck and Walter Hamada really know the true answer. So, I mean, I could sit here and speculate like everybody else, and I have my theories. But I believe it was a situation that Ben wanted out. And I think Warner Brothers wanted him out. I honestly think it got to a point that the two were just sick of each other. In that particular scenario. Like, I think you're going to see Warner Brothers and Ben Affleck work together again in the future, but not as Batman. For whatever reason, something there soured fast. And I don't know if it was, you know, if it had anything to do with Ben reacting to the overall, he just got sick of the negative backlash to him being Batman. I don't know if he hated the fact, like, he was thriving as a director and then being in these really divisive films, maybe that turned him off. I don't know if the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, for all I know, that relationship was already broken before Warner Brothers decided to scrap his script or scrap him as the director. But I remember telling everybody at the time when Ben was saying, oh, you know, I've decided to step back as a director because, you know, it's, you know, directing and starring in this is a little bit too much. And I said that was BS. I'm like, dude, you just starred in and acted in multiple films of your own. And oh, look, the last one you starred in and directed won Best Picture at the Academy Awards and won you Best Director at the Directors Guild of America. Don't tell me you find the notion of it too daunting. And I told everybody that was BS, and everybody called me names and said I had no idea what we were talking about. Fast forward a couple of years now, turns out it was all BS. That something happened that just very quickly disintegrated that relationship, and I don't know what it specifically is. I just don't know. I've heard whispers, I've had rumors, but there's no point in mentioning those, because none of those are confirmed. So we won't know probably for another 5 or 10 years when Ben Affleck decides to write a book, an autobiography. At that point, maybe we'll find out. All right. Virender Singh writes, oh, sorry, we already did Virender. All right. Matsiv Giada writes, movies should never have topical references. No, that's not true. Every movie is made in a contextual situation. Every movie is made in a certain context of its societal environment. Some will have topical or pop cultural references, some won't. But I disagree with that, Massive, completely. I don't believe that they all should, not at all. But sometimes you should, because you're not making a movie for what is this movie going to be in 20 years. You're making the movie for how will the audience today respond to it. And so you can have those. And if one of those will better your movie right now, then do it. So I disagree. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I personally disagree. Ryan Lohner writes, the Muppet Movie is back in theaters next month. I heard about this for its 40th anniversary. Never thought I'd be able to see it on the big screen again. You know what? I don't often rush out to see these movies when they're re-released on the big screen again, but that's one I'm probably going to have to do. I'm probably going to have to go and watch that Muppet Movie again because it's been, oh hell, you know what? I'm not even sure I ever saw the Muppet Movie on the big screen. I'm not positive I ever saw the Muppet Movie on the big screen. So I think that is one I will have to go and watch. I'll have to go and watch that one. That one, I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. All right, Jesse Mendelson writes, Mendelssohn writes, by the way, it's past the Emmy qualification deadline, so at this point we can say that we think. So let me try this again. By the way, it's past the Emmy qualification deadline, so at this point I think we can say what we think deserves it. Chernobyl going to get all of them Emmys. Just joking. I don't even know. The Emmys have a weird window, because I remember like Game of Thrones won for something that I thought was out 2.5 years ago. I mean, the Emmy qualifying window to me is something that's a mystery to me. I'm more of a movie guy than a TV guy, so I don't really know. All I know is this. The Chernobyl is bloody brilliant. Chernobyl is bloody brilliant. So I don't know about Emmy deadlines. I don't know about any of that stuff. It's not the stuff I keep a closest eye on. All I know is that Chernobyl is incredible. If you haven't seen, guys, believe me, the hype is real. All this hype you're hearing about Chernobyl, it's totally real. Check it out. Watch it. You will be moved and broken and inspired. And oh my God, it's just so beautifully done. You got to check it out if you get a chance. All right. ETT Media writes, you know what we need? The Guys, an Other Guys prequel starring Dwayne Johnson and Samuel L. Jackson. You know what? People said that for a long time. Because I remember when the Other Guys came out, which I don't think is all that great. I don't think it's actually all that good. But when The Other Guys came out, a lot of people were saying, you know what the movie just should have been? It should have been about The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson's characters. And yeah, and if they didn't kill them off in the movie, they could have done a sequel. Samuel Jackson is now 70-something years old. I don't think you can do a prequel with him. Although with the right makeup, he can still pass like he's like late 40s, early 50s. He's just got like immaculate skin. So, I mean, maybe, but I think the window of that possibility has closed. I think if they had done something like that within the first 3 or 4 years that The Other Guys came out, I think it's something maybe they could have entertained. They just shouldn't have killed them off in the damn movie, because then you just could have done a spin-off movie with them, and I think that movie would have made $400 million at the box office, but never did happen. I think the opportunity for that has passed us by, unfortunately. All right, Amir B writes, I rewatched Toy Story 1 through 3. I loved them as a kid, and I'm still amazed of how great they are as an adult. The Andy goodbye scene makes me cry every time. Oh my God. I mean, look, Toy Story, we talked about this the other day. I won't rehash the entire thing, but look, as of, I don't know. Let me pull this up right now quickly. If I go to Toy Story 4 Rotten Tomatoes, Toy Story 4 right now, it still holds 100%. Toy Story 4 is still holding 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. That means, as of now, out of the 4 Toy Story movies, 3 of them hold 100%, and 1 of them holds a measly, pathetic 98%. That means, as of this moment, out of a possible score of 400, because there were 4 films, out of a possible score of 400, Toy Story franchise has a 398. And it's deserved. It's ridiculous. These are movies that find a way to just appeal to everybody. It doesn't mean they're everybody's favorite films, but they appeal to everyone. And everybody likes them. Some like them, some love them, some think they're the greatest things ever, but everybody at least likes them. That's insane. That is crazy. And it is crazy how through this whole process and this whole franchise, and what a silly little concept. Toys that speak when you're not around. Ooh, that sounds brilliant. And yet here we are, one of the greatest film franchises of all time. It's kind of crazy. And I still haven't seen it yet. I'm going to see it this week. All right. Let's move on here. Curtis Lopez writes, when someday mini Campeas come into your life, what precautions are you going to take to make sure that Darth Vader Empire Strikes Back twist isn't spoiled for them? There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. I'm not going to be able to control that. Look, there are a lot of people who knew about the Empire. I mean, as we get, because Empire Strikes Back is over 30 years old now, I believe. As we move on, a lot of people today are watching Empire Strikes Back for the first time, already knowing that Vader is Luke's father. There's nothing I can do about that. It's like saying, how will I as a father be able to protect my kid from mean kids? I can't. Any more than my parents could protect me from mean kids once I had to walk out the front door and go be a kid. They can't stop me from bumping my knee. They can't stop me from falling down. They can't stop me from having somebody say an unkind word to me. They can't protect me from life. There's certain things they can protect me from, and certain things they just got to let me waddle out into the world, right? And I can do everything I can do at home, but once my kid goes off to kindergarten, I mean, what am I going to do? Monitor them and silence any child talking about a Star Wars movie to make sure it isn't spoiled for my son? You know, I can't do that. And there are a lot of people today who knew about it before seeing Empire Strikes Back, and they're still able to enjoy it. So I'm honestly, Curtis, whenever the time comes, I'm honestly not going to worry about it too much, to be honest with you. Richard Karate writes, what did you think of Star Trek Enterprise? I like Star Trek Enterprise. I mean, it wasn't anywhere near the same level for me as it wasn't the original series. It certainly wasn't the Next Generation for me. But I like Star Trek Enterprise. I thought it was decent. It might be, other than Voyager, it might be my least favorite of them, but I've liked them all. I like Discovery. I like Deep Space Nine. I like Next Generation. I like Voyager. I like Enterprise. I like the original series and yada, yada, yada. But it might be my least favorite of them, but I still enjoyed it. I still liked it. All right, Willow Yang writes, just wanted to express my appreciation. I didn't realize just how exhausting doing all these shows are. I honestly assumed you just had stronger vocal cords. Also, happy Father's Day to Pat Campea. Well, thank you so much for that. You know, that reminds me, I got to call my dad later. I got to call my dad. I'm always talking about my mom for a lot of reasons. My mom's remarkable. I love my mom. I don't often talk about my dad, and I don't know why I don't. My dad, let me take a second here, on Father's Day. I've written this before, but my dad is, and I know a lot of people feel this way, and I'll just add my voice to it. My dad is the greatest man I've ever known. My dad he is not the TV character dad. My dad isn't the most expressive, except for when he's pissed. My dad isn't the most emotional. My dad isn't the most all that kind of stuff. But every important thing I learned about the important things in life, I learned from my dad. And I'm not going to go into all the stories, but it's watching my dad is where I learned that family always comes first. Everybody says that. Everybody says family comes first. I got to see it. I got to watch that modeled in my dad, with not just his wife and his kids, but everybody else who's connected to our family, and they are family, and how he treats and takes care of our family. Extended and otherwise. And I remember growing up a number of examples of things he did that I wish he didn't do, but family comes first. and I later in life, I understood them. I just don't know how else to explain my dad, except to say he is the greatest man I've ever known. When I think of what I would want, because you're just talking about, in it's Father's Day, whenever I have kids, I don't know that I want if I have a son, I don't know that I want my son to be like me. I think I want my son to be like my dad. Honestly. I think I would more want, everybody wants to chip off the old block. I don't know that I want my kid to be like me. I think my dad's a better man than me. And I think I would want my kid to be like my dad. Son or daughter. I think I'd want them to be more like my dad than me. But yeah, so thank you for bringing that up and mentioning that. And indeed, happy Father's Day to my dad. And yeah, love you, Dad. All right, anyway. Let's move on here. Thank you for that, Willow, by the way. Appreciate that. John Salvi writes, did you ever read Spider-Man Maximum Carnage series? I did actually. We did a little chat about the Maximum Carnage series a while ago, and we were talking about how that could play theoretically if they were going to try to take elements from that into the future Venom movies moving forward, and how you could tie those in, and maybe what they were kind of hinting at in the Venom post-credit scene and stuff like that. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Richard Crotty writes, are you curious about the Witcher Netflix show, and when do you think we will get our first trailer? No idea. I don't even know when they're even planning on releasing this thing. Like, have they, honestly, I just don't know off the top of my head. Hold on a second. Netflix, The Witcher, released, I don't even know if there is an actual release date. I don't even know if there's a release year. It says, okay, I'm reading something right here, right now. At least Wikipedia is saying that The Witcher will drop sometime in 2019. I honestly didn't think it was going to drop until 2020 sometime. So this is news to me right away. For some reason, I had in my head that The Witcher wouldn't drop until 2020. Netflix seems to have, first of all, Netflix sucks at promoting their own material. They absolutely suck at it. So I don't know. They also seem to have this habit of dropping a trailer for it when the show is like 3 weeks away. Have you noticed that lately? That's like, hey, when's Daredevil season 3? All of a sudden, trailer drops, Daredevil season 3 in 16 days. And it's like, what? And that's how they seem to do it. I don't know if that's great or if that's terrible. I mean, I don't know. But I suspect if it is coming this year, I suspect they may do the same thing. They'll probably drop the first trailer for it like 2 weeks before the show debuts. If these reports are right, and it is going to drop in 2019, well, then we know we don't have any more than 6 months. We're going to have to wait for it. But yes, I am totally down for it. I was very excited when I found out Henry Cavill was cast in it. I think Henry Cavill's a great actor. I don't think he's just a great Superman. I think he's a great actor. When you see him in things like outside of Superman, like The Tudors or Man from U.N.C.L.E., whatever, he's a great actor. I really, really like Henry Cavill as an actor, and I'm very excited to see what they do with this thing. All right. Jonathan Teft writes, saw Late Night last night. I keep hearing good things about this. I gotta see this. Saw Late Night last night and enjoyed it very much. Special shout out to Paul Walter Hauser. I've never seen or heard this guy before, but everything he said was hilarious. He made the most with a small role he had. Look, again, when I was at CinemaCon a few months ago, there were a bunch of industry screenings they do, like way in advance screenings at CinemaCon. One of the screenings they did a few months ago was Late Night. But I don't know why. I skipped out on it. I don't know why, even though it looked pretty good to me. Anyway, so I didn't see it, but I heard the people who did go to that screening really liked it. I'm like, oh, that's good. And now the movie's out, and people are saying that they really enjoy it. I got to get around to watching this thing. Because I like Mindy Kaling. The cast is all good. I think the premise sounds interesting. So I got to check this thing out. And I'm hearing from more and more people, Jonathan, that's actually really solid. So I'm glad you liked it. And by the way, that's a really generous super chat. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for supporting the channel on the level that you do. I got to see this. I got to drag myself out there to go see this because I'm hearing nothing but good, positive things about it. So here's hoping. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, Lucifer says you wouldn't ask Superman not to fly after Tom Welling joins the show. I see what you did there. I don't remember the line. But I'm sure because I watched it, and I'm sure that I probably went, when he did that too, but I'm sure. Lucifer is great, guys. I know you're probably all sick of hearing me talk about Lucifer, but please please check out Lucifer. It's so great. There's going to be a season 5, so you've got about a year now to get caught up on the 4 seasons and set yourself up for the 5th and final season. I'm going to miss this show when it is finally gone. I'm going to miss it so much. By the way, how good was it to see Tom Welling as a series regular? And I thought Tom Welling was quite good in the role. I liked him in there. And I haven't really seen him do anything like of substance since Smallville. I thought it was really good to see him back. Anyway, Ike Moore writes, Men in Black and Shaft come out and people say we need more original material. You ask them if they have seen Booksmart and they don't know what you're talking about. Dude, I know. Preaching to the choir, brother. You're preaching to the choir. It drives me crazy whenever and I still hear people today going, Hollywood, all they do is make... No, they don't. They make tons of original films. Tons of original films. And you don't go see them. Booksmart is the best film of the year, in my opinion, right now. As of this moment, Booksmart is the best film of the year. No one's gone to see it. No one's gone to see it. I didn't even see it when it first came out. And it wasn't until I had a bunch of you guys tell me, John, hey, this Booksmart really is as good as they're advertising. I went, you know what? Then good. I got to go see this thing. And it's great. It's great. But we don't talk about Booksmart. I mean, we talk about Booksmart here, but in general, we don't talk about Booksmart. We talk about the names we recognize. We recognize Men in Black, so people talk about Men in Black. We recognize Shaft, so we talk about Shaft. And those get all the attention. And because those things get all the attention, we completely ignore all these other films that are coming out that nobody's simply talking about. Let me just play a little game here. Let's play a little game, okay? So we go into, I'm just going to open up a month here. I'm going to open up September, okay? Let's go into September. Goldfinch, based on a book, but it's not a reboot, it's not a sequel, it's not a remake, it's an original film based on a novel, yes, but that's coming out here. Hustlers is coming out. Ad Astra is coming out. Rambo, there. First film, first movie out of 4. Finally hit one that is a sequel or a remake. There we go, 1. Then we got 21 Bridges, not a sequel or a remake. We got Abominable, not a sequel or a remake. We got All Rise, not a sequel or a remake. We got The Hunt, not a sequel or a remake. Then we got an untitled Blumhouse Productions project listed, clearly not a sequel or a remake. So far we've had 1 film. All right, let's go into October. We got Joker, that's a remake, or a reimagining at any rate. We'll give you the Joker. The Woman in the Window, original. The Current War, original. Pain and Glory, I believe that's original. Then we got the Addams Family animated. There's a remake. Then we got Gemini Man, original. Then we've got Maleficent and Zombieland 2. There's 2 more ones that aren't originals. Bad Trip, original. Black and Blue, original. Countdown, original. The Last Measure, original. Untitled Arion horror film. I'm assuming that's going to be original. Then we get into November. Motherless Brooklyn, original. Terminator, not original. Arctic Dogs, original. Doctor Sleep, technically a sequel, so not original. Last Christmas, original. Midway, original. Playing with Fire, original. Charlie's Angels, not original. Ford v Ferrari, original. The Good Liar, original. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I don't know how we're going to call that one. Frozen 2, not original. Rhythm Section, original. Knives Out, original. Queen and Slim, original. Original. But most of these films are not the films that people are talking about. They talk about the names they recognize, the names they know. That gets our attention. And that's understandable. That's completely understandable. I get it. I'm not blaming anybody for the fact of when we think a lot of the movies that are coming out, we think of Terminator because we know Terminator. We recognize Terminator, so that gets our attention. There's nothing wrong with that. I understand that. What drives me crazy, though, is when people will say, oh, Hollywood doesn't make any original films. Are you effing kidding me? Look down the lists. The majority of all the films coming out are all original films. It's just that they're not the ones getting your attention right now, and I understand that, but they are original. It drives me crazy. That drives me crazy. Anyway, ZMG Ruler writes, thanks for the condolences, even though you're not a cat guy, no problem. So ZMG Ruler mentioned the other day that his pet cat died. And that's, look, I've lost pets. I have friends who've lost pets. It's never a good time when you lose a pet. It's never a good time. Now, I am not a cat person. I'm not particularly fond of cats. I'm a dog guy. But that doesn't take away from the loss you feel when you... It doesn't matter if it's a gerbil or a bird or a cat or whatever. When you lose a pet, that's a significant thing. And that really sucks. So anyway, Louis Dudash just sends in a couple super chats. Thank you, Louis. Appreciate that, man. Ruben Saldana writes, I need Bill Murray to be in Deadpool 3. After I watch The Dead Don't Die, the fourth wall breaks with Wade would be epic. I still haven't seen The Dead Don't Die. I had a couple of early opportunities to go see it, but I started hearing mediocre things about it, so it kind of killed some of my enthusiasm. I'm still going to go see it this week. But since I don't know the specifics of it, Ruben, I can't speak to that. But putting Bill Murray in anything, is putting Bill Murray in anything a bad idea? I mean, really? You could put Bill Murray in Game of Thrones, and I'm pretty sure somehow it's going to work. You could then put Bill Murray in Sesame Street, and somehow I think it's going to work. Is putting Bill Murray in anything a bad idea? I suggest nay. Nay. I don't think there's anything that's a bad idea to put Bill Murray in. All right, Daniel Manzanares writes, hey, John, have you seen Bradley Cooper's Limitless? I did, and there's a guy I know who's in that. Johnny Whitworth is in that, which I thought he was great in that. I actually quite like Limitless. It is a movie that wasn't as good as its premise, but then they spun it off into the TV series. It was supposed to be a continuation of the movie. I never did see the TV series, but I did enjoy the movie. I actually thought the movie was pretty damn good. All right, Robert Tari writes, aside from it just being a good movie, is there anything you'd like to see happen in Star Wars Episode 9? Nope. I don't play that game, Robert. I do not play that game. I don't create check boxes that a movie needs to do in order, because here's what happens with film fans. Film fans, this is what we do. We're all guilty of this. Me, you, all of us. When we start thinking about things we want to see in the movie, all of a sudden we become invested in that. And then no matter how good the movie is, if the movie doesn't do what we wanted it to do, it creates a little bit of a spiteful feeling in us. We've seen that play out many, many times, particularly in Star Wars movies. Like, we all know somebody who's gotten butthurt over something they wanted to see in a Star Wars movie not happen. They get all mad and jaded. We're all guilty of it. Let's be honest. That's what we as film fans do. So I remember a while ago, I kind of made the decision, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to stop putting together check boxes of things I want to see in the movie. I don't care. You know what I want to see in Episode 9? Whatever it is that J.J. Abrams wants to tell in the movie. That's what I want to see. I'm not going to create any other check boxes. I'm not the one making the movie. I'm not going to pretend that I'm the one who should be making the movie. JJ's making the movie. I thought he did a fabulous job with The Force Awakens. I love that movie. So I'm just going to go in with as clean of a slate as possible. Now, if you ask me, John, wouldn't you like it if Luke Skywalker came back? Of course I would like it if Luke Skywalker came back, but I'm not going to let my head go there. I am not going to do that. I used to do that. I probably still slip and do it a little bit, but I am trying not to do that. So all I'm looking for, Robert, all I'm looking for is an enjoyable movie. That's it. Whether the Emperor and Luke have a lightsaber fight, yay. If they don't, they do something else, fine. I don't want to make those check boxes in my head. I'm trying to resist that. All right. And then Robert also follows up and writes, would you ever do a meet and greet in Toronto? Come back soon. Here's what's happening. I am coming back. I'm coming back for a visit in August, mid-August. I'm coming back home. One of the main reasons is because I can't remember, was it SummerSlam? The WWE is doing a big event in Toronto. So me and like Ann and Corey, or in particular Corey's really into wrestling, and our buddy Ryan is really into wrestling. So I'm using that as an excuse to get back for a visit home. I haven't visited home other than Christmas time in about 9 years. I haven't gone home for a visit other than at Christmas time in like 9 years. I just haven't had the opportunity. So we're going to use that as an excuse. So me and our friend Kaori, our friend Ryan, maybe Ray might come too, I'm not sure. We're going to take a trip home. We're going to go stay at the Campea Ranch. I should probably get a hold of my mom and dad and ask them if that's okay. I mean, I know it's always okay with them. The Campea Ranch has like 6 bedrooms or something ridiculous like that. But I should probably, you know what? I should probably today call my mom and dad and say, hey, we're coming home in August. I told my sister, but I don't think I've told my mom and dad. So I should probably do it. Thank you for reminding me of that. So Ryan and Ann and Corey, they'll probably all go to the WWE event. I probably won't go. And I'm thinking about doing a meet and greet either in Hamilton or Toronto. But at either one, because Hamilton's actually my hometown, but it's only about a 45-minute drive. So if there's anybody in Toronto that really wants to come to a meet and greet, hey, just hop on the 401 and come on out to Hamilton, you know? So I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about, for all of you guys who watch the John Campea Show in the Southern Ontario area, I am thinking mid-August about doing a meet and greet when I'm there. So I'll keep you updated and let you know. But thank you for asking, Robert. All right, Ant Banks 1984 writes, if you want a good laugh today, check out the video of Brett Hall from, I've seen footage of this, of Brett Hall from yesterday's Blues Parade. He was more lit than Christmas lights during December. Yeah. So Brett Hall, of course, he was a St. Louis Blue for a while. Brett Hall, of course, is the son of the Golden Jet. His dad was one of the great all-time hockey players, and then Brett became one of the great all-time hockey players as well. One of the best pure goal scorers in league history. Not the best, but amongst the elite pure goal scorers was Brett Hall. He was amazing. And yeah, he was enjoying that party, Ant Banks. He was enjoying that party. By the way, congratulations to the St. Louis Blues. Nobody gave them a chance. Nobody gave them a chance. And I didn't think they had a big chance. I didn't think they had much of a chance either. But nobody gave them a chance against the Bruins, and they did it. And congrats to the St. Louis Blues. What a great story for them. All right. Murray Reich writes, let's see here. There are some AMCs I've gone to where right after you buy from the concession stand, right before you go to the rooms to have your show, your A-list number and ID. Wait a second. Let me try this again. There are some AMCs I've gone to where right after you buy from the concession stand, right before you go to the rooms, you have to show your A-list number and ID, which is annoying because I'm holding popcorn/soda. This is what I don't get. Well, okay, I think that's a separate question. Here's the thing. It depends. See, I don't know how your theater works. All right? I don't know how your theater works. In the theater, because there are movie theaters where you can go in and the concession stand is like, you don't even have to have your ticket checked yet. You go into the theater, and like at my big theater back home, not the AMC, the Cineplex Silver City in Ancaster, Ontario, which is part of Hamilton. That was a movie theater I go to. So you can walk into the theater, and the big giant concession areas are, you can walk into the theater anytime you want and just walk up to the concession area and buy your concessions. And then when you're going to your theater, when you're going to like Theater 5, when you're going to Theater 5, then you have your ticket checked, right? There are other movie theaters like the AMC 16 where even to get into the theater, even to get to the concession stand, you have to get your ticket checked, right? With AMC A-List, what they do and what they have to do to prevent fraud is when you're getting your ticket checked, they've got to see your A-list number and they've got to see your ID to make sure it's you. Otherwise, people would be abusing the A-list system like crazy. If they didn't do it, then all my buddy Soul would have to do is say, hey, Campea, even though Soul has his own A-list, but let's pretend he doesn't. All he'd have to do is say, hey, Campea, I'm at the AMC Burbank 16. I want to go see My Little Pony. I'm not saying, I'm just making up a movie. I want to go see My Little Pony. Can you book it on A-List and then send me a screenshot of your digital ticket? Sure. And then I can just make the reservation, send him a screenshot of the digital ticket, and he just gets it scanned there, and now he's in. I've abused the system. Because with A-List, only you are supposed to be able to use your A-List, right? So they've got to do that. It doesn't matter that you got popcorn and soda already, Murray. I mean, they have to do that. And they make that clear. It's not just in your theater. Every AMC you go to where you use A-List to get in, they got to see your A-List, reservation, and then they got to see ID to make sure it's actually you. They have to do that, or else people would start abusing the system, and then AMC is going to start losing money, and then they're going to have to shut down the A-list system. And none of us want them to shut down A-list because it's the best thing to ever happen to film fans. So is it a bit of a pain in the ass when you go to check your ticket that I also got to pull up my wallet? Not only do I have my phone out with my reservation, I got to pull up my wallet, pull up my ID, do this yeah, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. But if that's what we got to do in order to have this A-list system, I'm all for it. They have to do it. They've got to prevent against fraud. They've got to prevent against people gaming the system. So I'm totally cool with it. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that, Murray. All right, now Murray follows up, writes, this is what I don't get. I'm at my AMC Empire, and they have 4 registers. 3 workers are working. Oh my God, you and me both, buddy. Okay, 3 workers are working, and only 1 takes stub members. So really, my lane is slower than them. That's just backwards and wrong. Dude, preaching to the choir. All right? It drives me crazy. Look. If you don't want to have, I'm fine if you don't want to have AMC A-list lines only. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But if you're going to have separate lines for AMC A-list and you pay for AMC A-list, and a part of their sales is you get priority lines. If you buy A-list and you're an A-list member, you get priority lines. If you're going to make that a part of your sales pitch, if you're going to make that say, this is one of the benefits, then what the hell is the purpose of it if I look over at the non-A-list line and that frickin' line is moving faster than mine? What's the point? And I have had that, Murray. I have had that happen to me as well. Where like, okay, I show up to the theater for my movie. I feel like picking up a soda. Okay, great. And I look at the 2 lines, and the A-list line is longer than the non-A-list line because the non-A-list line is moving quicker because out of the 7 registers, they've got 4 or 5 of them for non-A-list people and 2 or 3 of them for A-list people. It's like, time out here. Time out. If you don't want to have priority lines, fine. But you sold us a bill of goods and said, hey, if you buy A-list and become a member, you get our priority VIP A-list line. Well, if you're going to say that, my damn line should move faster than the other line, shouldn't it? Otherwise, just get rid of it because I'm just as better off going off into the other line. I am in 100% agreement with you on that, Murray. I love A-list. It is the best thing to happen to film fans ever. But the one thing they really got to correct in their theaters is how these exclusive A-list member VIP priority lines work because they're slower than the non-priority lines. And that drives me crazy. I'm agreeing with you. And again, I'm not saying we were owed that. I'm just saying if you're going to tell us that's one of the benefits, then give us the benefit. And if it's not one of the benefits, take it away. And don't tell us that that's what we get. Anyway, but A-list is awesome. But that, Murray, is something that drives me a little bit nuts. All right, Antbanks 1984 writes, Silverback Gorilla versus Grizzly Bear, who wins? Battlestar Galactica. Do you guys know that answer, that reference? Jonathan Teft writes, a big super chat. Thank you, Jonathan. I really wish The Dead Don't Die was better. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I kept hearing, this is exactly the stuff I've been hearing, Jonathan, which is why I kind of delayed going to go see it so far. I really wish The Dead Don't Die was better. There are moments that are absolutely hilarious and other moments that really have to fight to get you to laugh. There's also side bits that go nowhere and add nothing to the movie. You know what, Jonathan? Again, that is so consistent with what I've been hearing from a lot of people regarding The Dead Don't Die. The trailers for The Dead Don't Die look awesome. I think the trailers for The Dead Don't Die look fantastic. And I got so excited for it, wanted to see it, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. But then I kept hearing exact stuff like this from a lot of people. Like, very few people saying the movie straight up sucks, but an awful lot of people saying, I was hoping for more. It's like, oh, really? And it's just kind of sapped the enthusiasm, Jonathan, out of me. You know what I'm saying? It just kind of zaps and kills that rush you get, that big gust of wind in your enthusiasm sails when you see the trailer. Whoa, this looks hilarious. And then you hear from all these people like, it's not actually that good. And you're like, oh. And it just killed my motivation for wanting to run out and see it. And I'm going to get around to it. Like I said, I'm seeing it this week, but Jonathan, it's comments like that have made me a little bit apprehensive about it. I got to admit. So thanks for sharing your thoughts, dude. I appreciate that. All right. Roman Bryant writes, I'd love Tom Hardy as Wolverine, but do you think being Venom hurts his chances? I don't care. X actor as X. There are many actors who would be a great Wolverine. Would I be happy if I heard tomorrow that Tom Hardy was playing Wolverine? Sure. But there's probably about 20 actors that they could name playing Wolverine I'd be super excited about, because there's lots of great actors who could play Wolverine. So I'm not going to get tied to any one guy. But theoretically speaking, does being Venom hurt Tom Hardy's chances of being Wolverine? No, I don't think so. We've seen plenty of examples of that. Idris Elba, is in one and can be in the other. Chris Evans can be in Fantastic Four and then be in a non-Marvel, a Fox Fantastic Four, and then be Captain America. I mean, we've seen this play over and over and over and over again, right? Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne, is Perry White, but then he's in the MCU. Like we've seen, James Gunn is directing Suicide Squad and then directing Guardians 3. Does Tom Hardy being Venom hurt his chances of being Wolverine? I don't think so. I don't know that there was any likelihood of him being Wolverine in the first place, but if he wanted to be Wolverine, is the fact that he's Venom, does that hurt him at all? I don't think so. I don't think it necessarily helps his chances, but I don't think it hurts them either. Aiden Foley writes, hey, John, since you went to Galaxy's Edge, I'm just curious, are there any more rides other than the Smuggler's Run on the Falcon? The other big ride was not open yet, and they let us know that well in advance. That the other, which is called, what's the name of the damn thing? Hold on a second. Galaxy's Edge... Resistance ride. Something Resistance. Where is Rise of the Resistance ride? There it is. It's the name of the other ride is the Rise of the Resistance ride. And I don't know anything about it. All I know is that it wasn't open yet. I walked over to the area where it was going to be. Here's an image. This is a concept image for it. Let me see if I can get this picture any bigger for you guys here. This is a concept image that they're showing for it, which that looks awesome. I don't care what anybody says. That looks freaking awesome. So that is going to be the other ride. So the Falcon ride, which is a hell of a lot of fun. I had a great time on that Falcon ride. But this is supposed to be the other one. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, if you guys have ever gone to Universal Studios, that reminds me a little bit of the Transformers ride, which is fantastic. The Transformers ride at Universal Studios is great. But that looks great to me. Again, other than this image, though, I really don't know much about it. But that's going to be the other major one, and I think that doesn't open for another month or two. I don't think it opens for another month or two, so we'll have to wait and see. But that will be the other main ride. But as of right now, it's not open. Only the Falcon one is. All right. King of the Hills 34 writes, preparing myself for cry time this week with Toy Story 4. Me too. I've got everybody saying it is the most emotional Toy Story movie, and it is the funniest Toy Story movie. That sounds like a pretty damn good recipe. I might have to be getting ready for some cry time in this one, King of the Hills. Might be a good idea to bring some tissue along. All right. Aiden Foley writes, I know you're not a fan of the prequels, but I'm curious, what do you think of some prequel villains like Grievous and Dooku? I love them personally. I never liked General Grievous. Never liked General Grievous. I don't like General Grievous. I am fascinated by Dooku, and I think there's a lot of stuff. I think it's an interesting character. I'm not particularly a big fan of what they did with Dooku, but I do like the character and the premise of the character. Former Jedi Master, turned to the dark side by Sidious. I like the character. I'm just not a big fan of what they did with him, but I do admit I was never a big fan of Grievous. That's just me. Raymond, now there are things about the prequels I like. I can watch pod races all day. A lot of the lightsaber battles I love. Even ones that even prequel lovers, even some of the lightsaber fights that prequel lovers hate, I love. The Count Dooku and Yoda fight, I freaking love that fight. I love that fight. I think it's great. I don't like the movie at all, but I love that fight. I love, obviously, the Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon fight. I love the pod races. There are elements in the prequels that I enjoy. Overall, I don't like the movies at all, but there are elements I dig. And the lightsaber fights, including that one in particular with Dooku, I actually quite enjoy a lot. All right, Raymond Verrata writes, did the superhero genre redefine a blockbuster event movie? Now you have advanced ticket sales, multiple viewings. In the past, Men in Black would draw big, but not now. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. A lot of the things you're describing there, Raymond, to me are just a change in movie-going culture and a change in technology, right? Because unlike back in the day when the first Men in Black came out, or when Star Wars came out, or when Jaws came out, whatever, I don't have my phone here, but we don't have these little mobile global communication devices in our pockets that we can do everything from ordering dinner, finding directions to the comic book store, and buying my movie tickets and sending messages to mom all right now. Like, those things weren't around, right? Those weren't, commonplace. Particularly the movement towards advanced ticket sales and all that kind of stuff, and services like Fandango or Atom Tickets or AMC or A-List or things like that. So I think I think comic book movies and the superhero genre have come to embody the blockbuster event today as much as anything else. But I think a lot of those other things you're talking about are really more indicative of the changing of the movie-going habits of the audience, as well as advancements in technology that I believe would occur anyway, even without the comic book genre. And you know me, I'm all about the comic book genre. Let me just look behind me. I am big into the comic book genre. But I think a lot of that stuff that you're very keenly observing, Raymond, I think a lot of that stuff has more to do with the changing trends and with the advancement in technology than it does with the superhero genre redefining what an event film is. I don't think so. I just think there are event films today that take advantage of the changing culture and climate of the movie-going habits of the audience and the advancement of technology, right? Like, remember when Star Wars The Force Awakens came out, it shut every online ticketing sales thing down because people were now taking advantage of this new technology. It wasn't the fact that it was a Star Wars movie. It wasn't the fact that it was a comic book movie. It was just that it was a big event film in a new era of changing movie-going habits and different technology. And I think that also applies to the comic book genre as well. And maybe embodies it a little bit more. But did the genre itself redefine the big event films? I don't think so. I don't think so at this point. Murray Reich writes, and of course we took a big jump, so hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Murray Reich writes, check out on YouTube, it's called Little Girl Stands Up Against the First Order at I've seen this. It's freaking adorable. It's amazing how they stay in character. It's really cute. It's one of my favorite things about Galaxy's Edge is the stormtroopers are going around and will stop people. And it's really cool. But guys, listen, take Murray's advice here. If you haven't seen this little video, jump on YouTube, search for that, because it's one of the coolest things you're going to see all day. Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up, Murray. Andres Martinez writes, mermaids, they real? Of course they're real. I've seen several of them. I haven't, but I'm sure they're real. But I don't know. Joseph Lattimore writes, after the MCU dies down, what IP might succeed? Oh, anything. Who knows? Anything at all. Probably something we haven't even conceived of or thought of yet. Kind of like how Avatar came out of nowhere. Avatar wasn't a pre-existing IP. It was just something that came up and came out of nowhere and was the next big thing. So that's probably what it'll turn out to be. Jonathan Teft writes, one of two. Last night at the AMC, a couple of employees came in the theater before the movie started and tried to sell more concessions to us like we were at a ball game. No one wanted any, and it was very awkward because most of us had already gotten concessions. Have you ever seen something like this before? I have. Not often, but I have seen it tested. And I'll tell you what, I actually kind of like it. And maybe I'm weird for this, but I kind of liked it for two different reasons. Number one, I love the fact that I didn't have to stand in a line for 15 minutes to get my popcorn, because a guy just came in with a cart with some cold sodas and some popcorn and a butter dispenser and said, anybody like something? I'm just like, hell yeah. And I just walked down to the front, grabbed a soda and popcorn. I loved it. The other thing I actually liked about it, and it's kind of because of what you just mentioned, Jonathan, one of the other things I really liked about it was it did create a ball game-like feel to it. Because to me, and this is probably unique to me, I'm probably just weird. To me, going to the movies is an event. I love going to the movies. To me, going to the movies is like going to an NFL football game. If I could, I would tailgate at it. To me, I'm getting, like, when I know I'm going to the movies that night, I look forward to it all day. I'm not kidding. You'd think I'd be a little bit more jaded by now about the movie going experience, but when I know I'm going to the movies, like I'm not going to the movies tonight. Tonight's Dungeons and Dragons night here at the house. So we're playing Dungeons and Dragons tonight with our friends. But when I know Ann and I are going to a movie tonight, that's all I think about all day. I'm just excited about going to the movies. Ann gets home from work. I'm like, okay, don't forget, we got to leave at like 6:15 because we're walking down to the theater, want to be there in time. We're going to get our soda. We're going to plan our lines and blah, blah. And what are we going to eat? What time should we eat dinner? Should we have dinner before you get home? Or do we have enough time to get down to downtown Burbank, walk down there and eat something there? I'm planning the whole freaking day out. It's sad. It's probably indicative of somebody who works from home. I don't know, but that's all I think about. And so to me, on the few occasions where I've actually seen it, that they've brought concessions in and it does give it that ballpark kind of feel, to me, I love it. I got to admit, I love it. Because again, it just adds to that ballpark kind of atmosphere that this is an event, the show's about to begin I love it. But that's just what the movies are to me. That's what the movies are to me. So I can't speak to anybody else on that, and I can't speak to your experience on that, Jonathan. But for me, it's a top-notch thing, and I actually really totally dig it. All right, Connor Dixon writes, love Lucifer, gutted its ending. I'm only on season 2, but you know what, Connor? Here's the thing I keep telling everybody. It was canceled after season 3. We got 2 more seasons out of it. We got season 4 and we're getting season 5. So we're getting 2 more seasons than we were going to get. So while I am also gutted that it's ending, right now all I feel is gratitude for Netflix to giving us 2 more seasons. Connor then follows up with, favorite show of all time, love the cast. Really, it's your favorite show of all time and you're only on season 2? Yeah, it's not my favorite show of all time, but God, I love this show. My favorite show of all time is still Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. It's still Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. So that's still my all-time favorite, but man, Lucifer is a show I love watching. It's almost a movie kind of feel to me. When I know there's a new episode of Lucifer on, at least before Netflix took it over, I was just excited all day that we get to see a new episode, and I'm glad you're getting through it, man. Richard Gonzalez sends in a super chat. Thank you, Richard. Master Assassin's Clan sends in a super chat. Thank you, Master Assassin. Matt Brown writes, Gondor calls for aid, then Rohan shall... There are certain scenes in movies, ladies and gentlemen, that when they're spoken, and I can't speak for women in the audience because I'm not a woman, so I can't relate to the experience, so you have your own, but I know as a man, there are certain scenes in certain movies that when they happen, you just want to go, grrr! Yeah, and you want to stand up and cheer. And I tell you what, if you ever want to get me worked up, bring up this scene or bring up a scene in Best of the Best, or bring up the scene at the end of Return of the King. You're going to get me worked up. This is the scene that gets me worked up. When Strider comes running into Theoden's throne room. This is from Lord of the Rings, by the way, for those of you who don't know the reference. When Strider comes running into Theoden's throne, he's seen the torches being lit. And he runs into Theoden's throne room. And he says, Gondor calls for aid. And Theoden, like a boss sitting on his chair, he ponders for a second. And one of the best lines, guys, the hair on can you see the goosebumps on my arms just thinking about this scene? Theoden looks up, and Rohan shall answer. And it's like, there's just certain scenes in movies that just Like, make your blood flow, you know? And to me, John, it's just a movie. Relax, man. I don't care. When there's that scene plays and you just want to stand up, you wish you had a sword because you just want to stand up and hold your sword up when Theoden says that, man. One of the great moments of one of the greatest film franchises of all time. God, I get excited about that. God, I get excited about that. Anyway, there are a few movie scenes you can bring up that really get me going, and that's one of them. God, and Rohan shall answer. Anyway. Kian Shingler writes, so Endgame isn't going to beat Avatar. That's what happens when you don't include the that's what happens when you don't include the Thanos copter. Called it, signed the petition today. Yeah, I mean, look, it's still not impossible. It's still not impossible. You know, there are some people predicting, I don't necessarily agree, but there are some people predicting that when Spider-Man Far From Home comes out, it's going to give a bit of a bump to Endgame, much like Captain Marvel got a bump when Endgame was coming out. I believe the circumstances are reversed though, so I think it'll get a little bit of a bump, but I don't think it'll get a big significant bump, not like the way Captain Marvel got. So I'm not quite sure it's going to be the same kind of thing. I don't think it's going to be the same kind of thing, but it's still possible. It may get there, but I like that. All because the Thanos copter wasn't there. All right, guys. Hey, listen, I'm going to take just a couple more questions and then we're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to go, my glass is empty. I need to go refill my glass. I'm going to use the bathroom quick. So we're going to take a 5-minute break here in just a minute. I'm going to get through a couple more quick questions here though. Film Chris writes, favorite David Fincher film? For me, it's Gone Girl. Whew. I mean, I might have to agree with you. Let me just take a look because I think Social Network. I mean, I don't like Social Network. Let me just bring up a list of films here. I don't know that Social Network is. I don't know that I like it as much as say Robert does. That's one of his all times. Zodiac is really good, but I'm not the world's biggest fan of Zodiac, even though I like it. I'm not the world's. Seven, you got to consider. You know what? I think I'm going to have to go with you on that. I think I'm going to have to go with Gone Girl. God, I love that movie. That movie's great. And not enough people saw it. It's fantastic. Speaking of Ben Affleck. Recruz writes, have you seen the Obi-Wan versus Vader reimagined? Yes, we talked about it several times on the show, as a matter of fact. I thought it was very clever. I thought it was very, very clever. Kind of, what if that scene was shot in today's style of action scene? It's very clever. Some questionable visual effects, but whatever. It's a very clever video, and we've talked about it a few times, Recruz. I like it. Kian Shingler writes, also, over under 25% Dark Phoenix beats Thanos one-on-one. Wow. Huh. I'm assuming we're talking about a Thanos with a fully equipped Infinity Gauntlet. If we're just talking about Thanos, Dark Phoenix wipes the floor with him. If we're talking about a Thanos with a fully equipped Infinity Gauntlet, that's hard to beat one-on-one. That's hard to beat. Maybe there's an answer. Maybe an answer to that question is given in the comics that I don't know off the top of my head. I'm going to say Thanos with a fully stocked up Infinity Gauntlet. I'll go with that. Although I could be wrong about that. Ryan Lohner writes, maybe Titanic's next bump down the list will be Zoe Saldana with red skin. I mean, ooh, pardon me. Zoe Saldana right now is in the top 2 films of all time. I mean, Titanic has been beat by Zoe Saldana. I mean, who knows what's coming next? All right, guys. Hey, listen, we're going to take a 5-minute break here. And then we'll be back in just a few minutes. If anybody, do me a favor, guys. If anybody else comes along and says, hey, where's the show? Just say, hey, we're just taking a 5-minute break and we'll be right back. So I will be right back, guys, in 5 minutes. Hang tight, talk amongst yourselves, and we will be right back. And we are back. Thank you guys for your patience and letting me go and refill my drink and all that kind of stuff. Give my voice just a momentary break there for a second. All right, let's get right back into it, guys. We still have more questions waiting. We got Movie Pop who writes in, Ghost in the Shell 2019 went through 20 years of development hell. Director Rupert Sanders was handpicked by Spielberg. A $170 million budget. Why did studios let this intellectual IP become a brain-dead version? Well, look, it comes down to this. It's the same philosophical... By the way, it wasn't 2019, it's 2018. Anyway, was it even 2017? Might have been 2017. Hold on a second. Ghost in the Shell. It's 2017. Anyway, it comes down to the same principle. Everybody tries to make a great movie. Everybody tries to make a great movie. And everybody thinks that when you get the script to the point that it can look like a great script. I'll give you a great example of this. Was it Clash of the Titans? Hold on a second. Was it Clash of the Titans? Wrath of the Titans. Okay, Wrath of the Titans. There we go. Sam Worthington, back when he was like the hottest thing going in Hollywood. Liam Neeson, Ralph Fiennes, Rosamund Pike, Toby Kebbell, huge cast, all that kind of stuff. I read the script to Wrath of the Titans long before the movie came out. I read the script. I won't say how, but I was able to get my hands on a copy of the script. And the script was great. At least I read the script and it reads great. And I was like, oh my goodness, this movie's going to be awesome. This movie's going to be awesome. I'm reading that script and I talked to a couple friends of mine who had also read the script and were like, this movie is going to be great. And it was the script they used. And obviously the movie's not great. You write the script and you've got it visualized in your head. Look, again, we talked about this before. Kevin Feige's talked about this. Quentin Tarantino's talked about this. Christopher Nolan's talked about this. Like, it's great that you've got a script and you can be on set and shooting it and you think you're shooting the most wonderful stuff, but it's not until you get into the daily, assembly cuts and putting your cuts together and getting in the editing room that you really start to see, as Quentin Tarantino says, you start to see what your movie actually is. It can come across a certain way on the printed page. It can play out a certain way in your imagination. It can seem a certain way as you're on set, even shooting it. But a lot of times it's not until you get into the edit that you start to really see what your movie is. Now, while we talk about today, a lot of things like MCU movies and Star Wars movies, they'll have reshoots planned in advance because they know they're going to have to reshoot. The fact of the matter is the majority of movies do not have budgets that you can do big reshoots. The way movies are made is you do the best you can making your script, you do the best you can in your pre-production, then you do the best you can in the production of it when you're actually shooting the movie, and then that's what you got. And now you got to edit it in the best way that you can to make the best movie that you've got. Most movies do not have the luxury of having big reshoot budgets, particularly when they were already expensive movies. So everybody, that's the thing, Movie Pop. So many people just think making good movies is easy. Oh, they made a bad movie? Well, why didn't they try to make a good one? Why didn't they just make a good movie, right? That's what we do. That's what we as film fans do. I've done it, you've done it, we have. Well, why didn't they just make a good movie? Oh, wow, if only they had thought of that, right? That we remind ourselves when we're more coherent. We remind ourselves, oh yeah, why didn't they just make a good, because it's really hard to make a good movie, and they were trying to make a good movie, and as they were writing it, and as they were shooting it, they thought they had a good movie. But it doesn't always work out that way. And that seems to be look, there's a lot of things that we as film fans don't really grasp. But one of the things I think we often, even though we know it, I think we lose grip of it. We just think making good movies is easy. And if somebody makes a movie that isn't good, then they just didn't try. Yeah, they did. They tried their damnedest. They put hundreds of millions of dollars behind it. They got super talented people involved. They tried their best and it didn't work out. And that's what happens. That's why when you get guys like Christopher Nolan, whose worst movie is still a pretty good movie. That's why when you get a Steven Spielberg, that's why when you get these directors who make it look easy because most of their movies are good, the fact of the matter is 99% of the directors out there have almost equal parts good movies and bad movies. Like for every Denis Villeneuve, there's other guys who've put out some really good movies and some really bad movies. They all try. So I get it. I get it, Movie Pop, that our first reaction is like, how did the studio let them put out a bad movie like this and put out a bad... Well, they didn't mean to. They all tried, and they thought they had something good. They thought they had Wrath of the Titans. I read the script. I thought the script was great. And then I saw the movie. It's like, well, this is the same movie as the script, but this is great, and that's terrible. That's just the way it is. And that's something that a lot of film fans need to understand. That you can try your damnedest, you can have a good script, or at least what you think is a good script, and it plays out a certain way in your head, and it seems a certain way when you're shooting it. But then you get the total package, you get it all assembled, and sometimes it doesn't work. Oftentimes it doesn't work. It doesn't mean that the studio didn't care. It doesn't mean that the filmmakers didn't try. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean any of that. It just means that they made a movie and it didn't work. You know, in my career of doing shows, I created shows like A Jedi Council. I created shows like Movie Talk. I created shows like Heroes. I created shows like the John Campea Show. I created shows like Film HQ, and I created shows like The Weekly Hero, and I've created a number of things that have worked. But guess what else? In the midst of all the things that I did that worked and succeeded, and all these things that I made that worked and succeeded, there were also things that I did and created that didn't work and didn't succeed. For all the really great hires I've made and people I've recruited and talent that I've developed, there's also hires I made and people I recruited that didn't work out. You know? For every John Campea show that I've made, there's been some other show that I tried to develop that didn't work. Did I not care? Of course I cared. Did I not give it, the attention it deserved? Yeah, I gave it the attention it deserved. I tried it. I thought it was a good idea on a number of times, and sometimes it doesn't work. Doesn't mean I didn't care. Doesn't mean I didn't try. It just means, you try some things and they work, and you think they're going to be great, and sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. I mean, it happens. Same is true as movies. Same is true as movies. And we as film fans really, because like I said, Movie Pop, you probably know this, and I know this, and yet despite the fact that we know this, we still lose grip of that, and we fall back into, well, why didn't they try to make that a good movie? And we still do that, right? And I think we just need to hold on to that a little bit more. Anyway, okay, Darth Sidious writes, is Anne related to Rita Ora in any way? I've asked Anne that, and I can't remember what the answer to that is. I honestly can't remember what the answer to that is. Luke Blackwell writes, would you rather play a Stormtrooper or an Ewok? Hey, I love the Ewoks, but I would love to play a Stormtrooper. I think that would be cool. Iggy is Horrible writes, dude, Booksmart, 5 out of 5. Go see it. Left with tears in my eyes. Best comedy so far in 2019. I even got emotional at the end. My favorite, the Uber scene. Oh my God, the Uber scene is great, but I don't even know if the Uber scene is in my top 5 favorite parts of that movie. I don't even know if that's in the top 5 parts of my favorite parts of the movie. That movie is awesome. Like, what part I thought was brilliantly done? The pool scene. And I'm not going to say anything that would give anything away for those of you who haven't seen it yet. But the pool scene I thought was masterfully done. Can't believe that was a first-time director in Olivia Wilde. Can't believe how well she shot that scene. That scene is beautifully done. And everything that happens afterwards. It's, oh God. Guys, listen to Iggy. Listen to Iggy. See Booksmart. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful movie. I just enjoy it so much. All right. Michael Jones writes in, really generous super chat. Thank you so much for that, Michael. I appreciate that, man. If you go by Toy Story movies past opening weekends, then Toy Story 4 should open around 200 million. First one opening weekend was 29. Second one was 57, almost double the first. Third one was 110, almost double the second. Yes, I would say this though, Michael. Be very cautious in looking for patterns. Definitive patterns. Now, I do expect that Toy Story 4 will open bigger than Toy Story 3 did. I don't know that it's going to open to $200 million. I have my doubts it'll open to $200 million. I hope it does. That would be great because I love Pixar and I love Pixar movies and I love Toy Story. It'd be great to see it succeed. I haven't seen the film yet myself, but I'm going to go see it this week. I think 200 million might be a stretch. I think that might be a stretch. It would be great if it did. And those are some solid numbers, but we're also talking, it's been how many years since Toy Story? Like, hold on a second. Hey, Google, when did Toy Story 3 come out? Let's see what Google has to say.
Toy Story 3 came out in the United States of America on June 18th, 2010.
2010, it's been 9 years. So, I mean, I don't know that we can mathematically sit down and say, well, this was this, therefore this will be this. I don't know that we can say that, but it's going to be big. I do believe it'll be over 110. I think it'll be bigger than the opening for Toy Story 3. But will it be 200? I think that might be pushing a little bit. And then, Michael continued with a fourth one open to 200, 210 would be almost double the third one. Yeah, it would, but I think that's a big stretch because, hey, doubling from 20, from 30 to 57, that's only a $27, $28 million difference. Even from 57 to 110, that's only like a $58 million difference. 59, 60, $63 million difference. Going from 110 to 200, now you're talking almost $100 million difference. I just don't know. Because until the reviews have been coming out as well, Michael, this is the other thing we got to keep in mind. Until the reviews started coming out, I found there to be a general excitement for Toy Story 4, but also a big, heavy feeling of, really? Another one? There seemed to be a lot of a sense of, really? Another Toy Story? Going around. And I just don't know. I mean, to the point that when the reviews started coming out, and it's holding 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, it's surprising a lot of people. It's like, really? It's got 100%? Like, it's surprising a lot of people. So I just got a feeling that 200 is going to be out of the ballpark, but wouldn't it be great if it did? Wouldn't it be great if it did? If Toy Story really did end, with its final chapter, chapter 4, and if it ended on such a big bang. I mean, that would be marvelous if it did, but I just think it might be a little bit out there. I'm thinking more 140, 150. I'm thinking more 140, 150. I just think 200 is going to be too far, but I would love it if it did. I would love it if it did. Anyway, some good math there, Michael. Well done, sir. Good research. All right. Film Chris writes, I've seen so many TV shows, but my favorite show will always be Sons of Anarchy. Right into this world. Anyway, I love all the characters. My favorite is Tiggy. Every season is fantastic, but season 3 is my least favorite. You know what's funny, Film Chris? Sons of Anarchy is either my number 2 or my number 3 all-time favorite show. I love the Sons of Anarchy. Love that show desperately. As a matter of fact, when we were at AMC, that kind of became, we kind of took over that moniker a little bit, and if you guys remember back in the AMC days, we called our show the Sons of AMC. Well, that wasn't the name of the show. But that was kind of the what's the thing I'm looking for? That kind of became the name of the crew, right? We kind of named the crew Sons of Anarchy. And one of our fans actually put together, for those of you who've never seen this before, who haven't been around since the AMC days, this was our, and I'll see if I can get this any bigger for you. This was kind of became the patch of our crew. When you joined the AMC team, you became one of the Sons of AMC, and this was our thing. Now, this at the time, there was one of our fans at the time who made this graphic for me because they knew I love Sons of Anarchy, and there was me in my hoodie that I always used to wear, with the microphone that I used, with the AMC hat that I always wore. So they kind of made that the Reaper figure in the middle, and I just fell in love with this, and I got their permission, and we put this on t-shirts, and we actually made patches that we would give away to people that they could put on their stuff. And I used to love being at Comic-Con, and we would run into people wearing the AMC patches and stuff like that, and that always used to be great, the Sons of AMC patches. It was always fun, man. I love that. But the funny thing is, Film Chris, you're not alone. A lot of people who love Sons of Anarchy will say that season 3 was their least favorite season. And that's the season where they go to Ireland, I believe. Oddly enough, I think it might be my second or third favorite season. Because I remember at the time, when I discovered Sons of Anarchy, I was behind. Because I didn't think the show looked all that good, so I never got on board until it was already into its third season. So I believe it was into its third season that I started watching it already from the beginning, from season 1. Fell in love with it immediately. And I had people warning me, hey, just so you know, when you get to season 3 isn't so great. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But then I watched season 3, and I gotta say, I really liked it. I really like season 3. But you're not alone, Chris. Even the most diehard of Sons of Anarchy fans will say that, yeah, season 3 is probably their least favorite. So you're in good company, Chris. But for me, I'm a little bit weird. I actually really love that season. All right. Truth IZ writes, do you think Ruffalo and Holland are doing this on purpose when they give out spoilers? Are they actually bad at this kind of interview? You know what, dude? I have thought that exact same thing. There's a part of me that thinks that one of them maybe slipped up something once, and then it just kind of became a thing, you know? So I don't know. Let's be clear. I do not know what the definitive answer to this is, but what I think is probably the case is that this is a situation where maybe somebody accidentally let something slip once, and then they just took advantage of it and kind of made a thing out of it and made a running gag out of it. I don't know. Maybe it is true that they're just both really bad at that. I got a feeling these are both actors. They know what they are supposed to do and not supposed to do, and say and not supposed to say. So I have a feeling there might be a little bit of 50-50 in there. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to guess there's a little bit of 50-50. All right. Alex Spur writes, what are the chances of Pixar doing Incredibles 3? I would look. If you'd asked me before Incredibles came out, if you'd asked me before they came out, I would say almost none. But fact of the matter is, Incredibles 2 came out and made $1.24 billion. That's very motivating. $1.24 billion is very motivating. So I've gone from 0% chance that they do it to maybe 15% chance. I still don't think Brad Bird wants to make another one. I mean, we all know Brad Bird was pretty hesitant to do a second one. And I'm so glad he did, because Incredibles 2 is awesome. I love Incredibles 2. But I think it's still very unlikely. I think it's more possible now that it had the box office success that it had. That can be very motivating. But I still think overall, probably unlikely. So I'm going to say 15% chance. Thunder Knight writes, I'm not a big Star Trek fan, but really enjoy the J.J. Abrams films. Why do you think a lot of Star Trek fans don't? I can only speculate. I don't like making up excuses for why other people don't like something that I like. So let's just be clear. But if you're going to ask me for my theory, I will give you my theory. But I do not in any way mean to put words in other people's mouths. Okay, let's be very clear about that. You asked me for my theory, so I'll give you my theory. I am like you, Thunder Knight. I like the JJ Star Trek movies quite a bit, especially the last one. I enjoyed that a lot. And I really liked the first one. I still thought the second one was good, the one with Khan. I thought that was good, but probably the least great out of the three. Anyway, my theory about why original Star Trek fans, not all of them, because some of them really do like the new films, but many of them don't. I can only surmise from what I've heard them say. And basically, I'll give you Robert Meyer Burnett as an example, because Robert is like one of the biggest Star Trek fans I've ever known. And he really does not like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek films. And listening to Robert, what I often hear him say is, Star Trek is supposed to be... He often, whenever I've talked about Star Trek with Rob, often the first phrase he starts with, and I'm not suggesting that he's wrong, I'm just saying, he often starts with the phrase, Star Trek is supposed to be... And then he'll go on describing what the original Star Trek was and what those original Star Trek movies were. And so from that, I surmise, and I could be way off, but from hearing that constantly, what I come up with is that they don't like it because it's not like what Star Trek used to be. It's a new iteration of Star Trek. It's different. And what I think a lot of fans of original Star Trek fail to remember is that Star Trek was a dead franchise. Before J.J. Abrams came along and revitalized it, there were no new Star Trek fans being born. The Star Trek fandom was literally dying off. The success of the original Star Trek and Next Generation Star Trek films were dive bombing. They were like becoming worse and worse and worse and worse, and nobody was going to see the movies anymore and none of that kind of stuff. So what did they do? They reinvented Star Trek, gave it, a bit of a modern context kind of feel, and took a little bit of a different angle on Star Trek than what they used to traditionally do. My theory, and again, I could be way off on this, and I do not mean to put words in other people's mouths. My theory is that, from what I'm hearing them say, it's that they just wanted it to feel and be like the old Star Trek, without understanding or accepting the fact that the old Star Trek was dying. Nobody wanted it anymore. And so I don't know. Again, so to me, it's just that they don't like the new Star Trek because it's not the old Star Trek. Again, I could be dead wrong about that. I do not try to make excuses for why other people don't like things I do. You're asking me my theory. I'm giving you my theory. But it just really, whenever I hear people describe why they don't like the new Star Trek stuff, what usually comes across to me is they don't like it because it's not like the old one. And maybe that's fair. Maybe that's fair. But all I can say, Thunder Knight, is that I look at it and I am a fan of the old Star Trek, but I'm also a fan of the new Star Trek, and I kind of like what they're doing. But at any rate, everybody's got their own reasons, man. It's all subjective and nobody's wrong. All right, Patrick Conway writes, over under 40% will get a second Simpsons movie on Disney+. Let's put it this way. I'd be surprised if we didn't, so I'm going to take the over on that. But you know what? It might be theatrical. They may do a straight to theater thing when they're getting ready to wrap up The Simpsons. They may go to theater on that because there's more money to be made there. If it works, it works. I love that username. Just sends in a super chat. I love that username. Jersey Kid writes, biggest disappointing ending, Game of Thrones versus Sopranos. I love the ending of Game of Thrones. I loved it. So everybody else can feel the way they want to feel. I thought the entire last season, other than the fact that it did feel rushed, and I still don't understand why they made the final 2 seasons 7 episodes and 6 episodes. That was stupid. Other than the fact that it felt a bit rushed, I loved the final season of Game of Thrones. Loved it. So I'm going to have to go with The Sopranos. And I have no problem with the way, black screen. I have no problem with the way Sopranos ended. But it was also a little questionable. So I will say, out of the two, I'll go Sopranos because I love the ending of Game of Thrones. Frankie Gouge writes, went to high school in the 70s. Dazed and Confused is pretty damn close for me. The hazing was exaggerated, but it existed. Everything else, close. I mean, that's because, obviously I was not in high school myself when I was in the 70s, but it's always cool, Frank, when you can think about these movies that are supposed to represent high school and the ones that actually spoke to our own high school experience. See, because Dazed and Confused is in a different era than mine, I'm just right off the bat, I'm not able to kind of relate, just because it's a different era and there's a lot of different cultural stuff going on. But it's always great when you can see those and kind of feel that. That's pretty fun. I've never heard somebody mention that one. I think that's a really great one to mention, Frankie. So thank you for bringing that one up. But you know what? I haven't watched Dazed and Confused in a few years. It's been a number of years since I watched it. I think I gotta go back. You put that one back on my radar now, Frankie. I gotta go back and watch that one again. James Shaw sends in a super chat. Thank you, James. Patrick Conway writes, David Harbour, Hellboy, Liev Schreiber, Sabretooth, or Kelsey Grammer as Beast. Best superhero / villain portrayal in a bad superhero movie. Kelsey's Beast for me. Those are some great examples, Patrick. I love those because I'm with you. Kelsey Grammer's Beast in X-Men Last Stand is actually really great. I love his Beast. And I remember when the big fight happens and we see Beast's fighting style. I thought Beast's fighting style was great. That's another movie that I don't really like all that much, but there's elements of it and parts of it I totally love. Kelsey Grammer as Beast is definitely one of them. Again, I loved Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth. I thought David Harbour was an excellent Hellboy. I thought he was a very good Hellboy, even though the movie wasn't very good. God. You know what? I'll say this. I think the most underrated one is Kelsey Grammer as Beast. I still think my favorite might be Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth. Maybe that's just because I love Liev Schreiber so much. I'll say his was the best one, but I think the most underrated one is, it's close between Grammer and Schreiber. It's close, but I really did like both of those. That's a great one to bring up, Patrick. Well done. I like that. All right. Ahmed Ismail writes, Whispers, The Great White Buffalo, Hot Tub Time Machine. Love that movie. See, that's another good example. Hot Tub Time Machine is a great example of a comedy that's awesome, and then they tried to do a sequel. Didn't quite work out. Hot Tub Time Machine 2, not that good, although it still had some decent laughs in it. You look like Gandalf the Poor. I love that line from 2. But the first Hot Tub Time Machine, that movie caught me, because that looked like a little bit of a throwaway comedy, caught me so off guard, loved it so much. Great White Buffalo. It's just, and that's a great moment in it too. Raymond 2000 just sends in a super chat. Thank you, Raymond. If it works, writes, just started a movie podcast with some buddies of mine. It's called If It Works, It Works on Spotify and SoundCloud. Check it out. Our first episode. You know what? And good on you. I'm always trying to encourage people, if you're a film fan or whatever, or a fan of anything, fan of digital cameras, fan of sports, fan of movies, fan of a particular TV show, fan of shoes, fan of whatever. I think the fan community needs more people getting involved. And it doesn't matter if 5 people listen to your podcast, if 10 people watch your YouTube channel, or 20 people read your blog. It doesn't matter. Add your voice to the conversation. And I think that's great, and good on you for doing that, man. I'm glad you guys are doing that. All right. Emad, I always mispronounce everybody's name. Imad Abdelatif writes, Toy Story 2 spoiled the Darth Vader twist for me. Well, okay, but let's be fair here. How many years had Empire Strikes Back been out between that and when Toy Story 2 came out? I'd say you had plenty of time. You had plenty of time, but it's true, you can't always be protected from classic kind of spoilers like that. Holland Love writes, no question, just giving a little support for the channel. Oh, thank you so much, Holland. I appreciate that, man. Did you know that for only insert dollar amount, you could get insert perk as a Patreon? Well, okay, thank you for the plug on that. Hey, so why not bring that up? For those of you who don't know, we do have a Patreon page that you guys can go and support the channel. It's great. It's because of our Patreon supporters that we're able to do a lot of the stuff that we do, that I'm able to put in 12, 14, 16 hours a day, that we're able to have and pay guys like Robert Meyer Burnett and fact checker Jonathan and Ray and Ashley when she was here, and ultimately her replacement or whatever. But yeah, and there are perks like audio only podcasts of the show, and we have a specific podcast that's just for our Patreon supporters, and we have a terrific Facebook group and stuff like that. So thank you, Holland, for number one, for the support, dude. And thank you to all of you guys who are sending in super chats, because you give us fun stuff to talk about, but you're also supporting the channel, and we're forever in your debt for that. But also check out the Patreon stuff and see if maybe you might want to become a Patreon supporter too. Thank you for bringing that up, Holland. I appreciate the plug. All right, Tony Hurd writes, any news on the Robotech movie? Oh, no. They've been talking about, I remember all the way back in my movie blog days, I still remember where I was when I first got the news. Was it I think it was Tobey Maguire. It was either Tobey Maguire. Hold a second. I couldn't. Was it Tobey Maguire or Elijah Wood. I think it was Tobey Maguire. It was either Tobey Maguire or Elijah Wood. One of them signed up. This is like 12 years ago. One of them signed up to produce and maybe star in a Robotech movie. And it's official, Robotech's coming. Yay! And nothing. Absolutely nothing. So no, I don't honestly know if it's ever going to happen. I don't know if the potential that the rights holder for, I don't know if there's rights problems. I really don't know much about what's going on behind the scenes with Robotech. I don't know if there's a rights issue. I don't know if maybe the producers thought, you know what? Transformers kind of ran the whole genre of giant battling robots, and Pacific Rim 2 with how bad it was. I don't know if they maybe think it just got run into the ground and maybe there's not a good market for it right now, or I don't know. But I simply don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully something gets back on track at some point. All right. Anthony J. Lee writes, it's official, John. I graduated with my undergrad degree yesterday, English literature. Congratulations, Anthony. That is awesome. Happy Father's Day to you as well. Been a fan since I was 16. I'm now 23. Well, listen, dude, seriously, graduating, first of all, just going to post-secondary education is no small thing. Graduating is a giant thing, because you've had to put in work and time and energy and effort, and do not underestimate the accomplishment that is. So congratulations to you, sir. I hope you're able to take that, use that for whatever it is you want to do a little bit later on. It's a major accomplishment. Congratulations, Anthony. That is awesome. Well done, sir. All right. Stubble McShave writes, I'm looking forward to the new Midway movie. It seems to have flown under the radar, and why not? It's a war movie, so it should fly under the radar. You know what? I haven't talked about Midway in ages, because there's really never been much to talk about. I know Luke Evans is in it, so I'm just trying to bring it up here. Give me a second here. Click. I know it's Roland Emmerich. Come on. There it is. Okay, so Luke Evans, Woody Harrelson, forgot about that. Patrick Wilson, Nick Jonas, Dennis Quaid, Mandy Moore, Ed Skrein, or Screen. I never pronounce how. Aaron Eckhart is in it. I didn't even know that. I didn't know Aaron Eckhart was in it. Anyway, it's all about the Battle of Midway, which was, by the way, when I was growing up, Midway was one of my favorite video games. Anyway, I used to be the one that was in my dad's bowling alley. I'd go with my dad when he would go to his bowling nights, and I'd play the arcade games, and Midway was one of them. I used to love that thing. I really don't know, other than when they were putting it together and shooting. It's supposed to come out this year. I don't even know when. I think it's like later in the year, like November or December, something like that. But it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see Roland Emmerich take a pass at a property like this. So it is going to be interesting to see, but I haven't heard much about it. I still don't honestly know much about it, other than basically what it's about, but it's going to be interesting to see when that comes. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a good one to bring up, Stubble. All right. Mark C. writes, Robert Meyer Burnett, Mike, wait, let's try this again. Robert Meyer Burnett, Mike, no, Matthew, Robert Meyer Burnett, Mike, no, Matthew, Good the actor. But Robert Meyer Burnett, Mike, no, Matthew Good. Are you trying to say might? Are you saying Robert Meyer Burnett might know Matthew Good, the actor, but you need to introduce him to the music of Matthew Good, the singer? I gotta say, Mark, I have no idea what we're talking about. I'm sorry, man. That one went right over my head. Maybe I'm supposed to know what that all means. Robert Meyer Burnett, Mike, no, Matthew Good, the actor, but you need to. I'm not quite sure what it is we're talking about. I'm sorry about that, dude. Hector Jeter writes, catching up on Game of Thrones and finally watched the Battle of the Bastards. Oh my God, so good. Oh my God, what an episode. I never loved / hated a villain like Ramsay Bolton, pure evil. Dude, one of the things they did so well in this show is, first of all, they had Joffrey, which you think we're never going to hate a villain on TV the way we hate Joffrey. And then like Ramsay Bolton's like, hold my coffee. I mean, it is crazy. That character is so evil and so vile, and they just did such a good job of making us hate that character. Anyway, Battle of the Bastards, one of the best episodes in Game of Thrones. It's terrific. Daniel Weissy writes, just once I gotta find a planet where people are worse than me at everything. A whole bunch of functional idiots. Isn't that Canada? It sounds similar to a line in Deadpool 2. I'm not... I mean, I don't think it's from Deadpool 2. It sounds similar to a line in Deadpool 2, but I don't know. So that one stumps me. It's a funny line, though. Ben C. writes, can you differentiate how story by, written by, and screenplay by are credited to people? Well, okay, so story by can mean a couple of different things. Let's start with screenplay by. The screenplay are the people who actually wrote the script. Like, actually wrote the script. That's a screenplay by. That's the most significant credit, okay? That's the most significant credit. Story by can just be, let's say I come up with this notion. Okay, let's go back to Felipe. We're going to have, I want a Felipe the Sentient Dancing Microphone. Okay, one night, a power surge, when I accidentally, something weird happened. I accidentally spilt some chemicals on the microphone while lightning hit the house and created a power surge. And all of a sudden, this microphone became a sentient being known as Felipe, the Sentient Dancing Microphone. And he goes on America's Got Talent, and it's all about his struggles to become accepted as a living, breathing microphone and his dream to become a dancing star. Okay, that's the story. I just came up with the story. So there, I created the story. Now I hire a screenwriter to come up and I say, okay, here's the story. And I give them the overall beats of the story. Now you write a script around that story. Now they actually take that idea and go and write it out, right? So story by can be anything from a guy just saying, hey, I wanna do a movie about Lobo, and Lobo joins the circus. Lobo? Like the Galactic Bounty Hunter joins? Yeah, Lobo joins the circus and becomes friends with a monkey. And Lobo and the monkey travel across the country looking for the monkey's lost mom. And I want that movie. So the story by can be as simple as that. And story by can be a guy who actually sits down and really plots out and writes a 20-page summary of what the overall story is and then hands it off. So it can be a little bit different. Written by and screenplay by, that's where the lines get a little bit more blurry for me, to be honest with you. The lines are a little bit more blurry to me, but normally what you're looking for is screenplay by, written by, generally the same sort of thing that you're looking at, but that's the big difference between story by and the writer. And that's the big difference. And story by can be as simple as, I came up with a 30-word pitch, or story by can be as exhaustive as like a 20-page outline. But that's the difference between story by and the screenwriter is actually the guy or the woman or the team that sits down and actually writes the script and comes up with the whole thing. So anyway, there's that. I'm oversimplifying it, I am, but that's as a general difference between the different things. That'll give you a general idea. All right. Sino Tief writes, hey, John, thank you for being part of my daily life and greetings from Berlin. Cool. I love one. I've always wanted to go to Berlin. Have you ever watched Peaky Blinders with Cillian Murphy and Tom Hardy? Love this show so much, but no one seems to watch. Here's the funny thing, Sino, and thank you for writing in and thank you for writing from Berlin. I heard all these great things about Peaky Blinders, and so many of my friends love that show. Love it. I must confess, I watched the first 3 episodes or so, and it just never hooked me. It never hooked me. Now, maybe it's one of those situations like Spartacus, because Spartacus is one of my all-time favorite shows, but I'll tell you what, the first 2 or 3 episodes of Spartacus is some of the worst television ever produced. Like, it's not just bad, it's some of the worst television I have ever seen, the first 2 or 3 episodes. And then somewhere around the end of episode 3 and episode 4 and 5, it just becomes genius. I don't know how, I don't know what changed, but it becomes genius, and it went on to become one of my all-time favorite television shows in my top 3, right? Maybe Peaky Blinders is like that for me because I've thought, because that was a few years ago that I checked out the first few episodes. And maybe I need to go back and push a little bit further into it because, like I said, the first few episodes just didn't catch me. They just didn't hook me in, you know? And I've thought more recently, because I keep having people tell me, Peaky Blinders is so good, Peaky Blinders is so good, Peaky Blinders is so good. And maybe I got to go back and revisit it. and maybe push in another 3 or 4 episodes to really give it a chance. Now, I don't believe any of us owe any show a chance. We don't owe any show a chance. And I don't believe I owe Peaky Blinders a chance. But I keep having people like you, Sino, telling me that it's actually really fantastic. And I'm thinking, maybe I just didn't go far enough into it. And maybe at some point I'm going to have to do that. Anyway, thank you for writing in, Sino. Really appreciate that. All right. Frankie Gouge writes, see Fat Thor singing Johnny Cash's Hurt? Yep, we've talked about it on the show a couple of times. I have seen it. It's really quite funny. Suthius writes, hey, Mr. C, grocery bagging 101, good sir. Why on earth would you bag apples with a watermelon? The apple would get all bruised up. That's why... This is, of course, going back, and I'm not going to go into the whole Snyder Cut thing again, but that's why I've said... there are apples in the bag, but there is not a watermelon in the bag. That's all I'm saying. However, I probably would have put a watermelon in with bags if I only had one bag, but you're right. It would probably bruise up the apples. We learn something new every day, Suthius. We learn something new every single day. All right, where are we at here? Sorry, I had another jump. Okay, Suthius writes. No, that was Suthius. Patrick Conway writes, finished watching Dead to Me. It's great, and Linda Cardinelli is awesome in it. I hope she gets to play a big role in the Hawkeye series. Oh, I do too, and I have not seen it. That's actually a show with, what's her name from Married with Children, Christina Applegate. Actually, I'm more thinking of, you know what, this is funny. I don't even think of Christina Applegate from Married with Children anymore. I think of her from Anchorman. Anyway, that's a show we keep hearing is really good, and Ann and I are planning on watching that one together. We don't have a lot of shows that we watch together. We watch Lucifer together. We watch Handmaid's Tale together. We watch Runaways together. There might be 1 or 2 other ones, but there's not a lot we watch together. But we're both waiting on watching Dead to Me together because we've both heard that's really good and we both like the trailers. So we're going to get started on that pretty soon. I keep hearing good things about it, Patrick. Thanks for the recommendation, man. All right, Suthius writes, just finished Jessica Jones season 3. Some parts I liked, some parts I didn't. I will say one thing, the acting across all the Marvel Netflix series is darn good, even if I don't care about some characters. You know what? And I got to say, Suthius, I'm not a fan of the Jessica Jones series. I didn't like season 1. Season 2 had promise at first, but then I ultimately didn't like it either. But I will completely agree with your assessment. I think the acting in Jessica Jones is top shelf. I really do. From the lead girl playing Jessica Jones, Ritter, I can't remember her actual name, but she's great in it. All the supporting characters I think are great. I think their performances are all top notch. I can't say the same thing about Iron Fist, but Iron Fist season 2 was better than Iron Fist season 1, and all the performances got better. I'll say that. The performances got better. And the girl who played Wing, I always liked her. Like from season 1 on, she was always great. But the performances all got better as well. But Luke Cage, I wasn't a fan of Luke Cage season 2. I am a fan of Luke Cage season 1, but season 2 I wasn't a fan of, but the performances are really good. Punisher, performances are great. Daredevil, performances are great. You're right, for the most part, the performances in all those series were always good, even the ones I don't like Jessica Jones. Let's see, Stelba McShave writes, it would be interesting to see if today's event films would have caused the same long lines and people camping in those lines for weeks to get a ticket. It's always funny, you know, and this kind of came up the other day, Stubble, talking about trying to compare different films against different eras. Because how would a Avengers Endgame, how would it have been responded to in a non-internet era? In a non-advanced ticket era? Would it have been the big event sort of thing? Would it have caused the big lineups like the original Star Wars kind of ushered in and all that kind of stuff? It's a good question. It's an interesting question to have. But it's very difficult to answer. It's very difficult to answer because movies are birthed out of their cultural context. Whether they're timeless or not is irrelevant. Movies are birthed out of their cultural context, and they're inseparable from the cultural context in which they were conceived. So, I mean, it's a very fascinating question about how would movies like, I don't know, a Justice League or an Avengers Endgame or something else, a Jurassic World, how would they have been received and acted towards, and what would have been the phenomena like in a different era? It's a fascinating question, but I don't know if it's one that we can even ask. Because all movies, including the original 1970s Star Wars, including Avengers Endgame, and including Jurassic World, they're all movies that are birthed within their cultural context, so it's hard to separate them. Fascinating question, but I just don't know that we can answer it. Jewish Singer 613, I like that name, writes, the A-list offers concessions in advance, but needs fine-tuning. The theater staff told me it's causing nightmares because people order too early when the coffee and grill isn't even ready to go through the app, though the app allows. You know what? I had a different... See, I don't know if they've already changed it or if it's different from area to area, because for me, I can order concessions in advance on my phone, right? But it gives me a window of time. Like, it won't let me select a certain amount in advance. Mine won't let me, like, it'll let me order in advance, but only up to a point in advance, right? So it gives me a little bit of a limitation. Maybe it's different from theater to theater, because I can see how that would be a problem. But also, I think their system might be getting smarter, because I've tried to select a certain time in advance and maybe they were already overbooked, and it says actually from 7:05 to 7:15 pickup window isn't available right now. I've had my app tell me that. When I've tried to order at like 6:30 or something, I'd be starting my walk to the theater and say, yeah, let me pick it up between 7:05 and 7:15, and it'll say actually that window of time is not available. You can either pick it up a few minutes after that or a few minutes before that. So maybe their system's getting a little bit smarter. Look, once they work out, there are bugs in the system. Once they work out the bugs and get this all smoothed out, it's going to be fantastic. Because I'll tell you what, right now, it's still got some bugs. And I still really enjoy using it a lot. But you're right, Jewish man. There are bugs. They still got it. This is why, you bring it out, you test it, you use it. That's why it's not available wide across the country yet. It's still, and they're rolling out the number of markets in. You do trial and error. You learn from your mistakes, and hopefully it'll get better and better, and we'll see how that goes. Jubilera writes, hey, John, so excited for Toy Story 4. You and me both, brother. Have to wait until August 30th to see it, though. Sucks to live in Sweden sometimes. Well, hey, listen, it's still going to be the same movie, right? It's going to be the same Toy Story you get to 3, and you get to see. And think of it this way, Jubilera, think of it this way. By the time August comes around, all of us over here, we've already seen it, right? We've already seen it. I will never get to watch it I don't get to have that anticipation for it anymore. I don't get to look forward to opening night anymore. I don't get to look forward to that first time I'm going to sit in that theater and watch it come up and see Buzz and Woody come on screen. I've already experienced it, and I won't get to do that again. You'll be in the enviable position where it's like, damn, Jubilera gets to see it for the first time still, and we're all going to be a little bit jealous. So look, I'm not going to pretend it's not great to get to see it first. It is great to get to see it first, but there are advantages because you're going to be in a position where you're going to get to see it for the first time when all the rest of us don't get to have that experience again, and we're going to be a little bit jealous, I think. I know I will be. All right, a fan of Peanuts writes, finally saw Green Book. So good. Very good. Acting was great. Made my top 5 for 2018. Number 1, 8th grade. Number 2, Hereditary. Number 3 is Star is Born. Number 4, Mission Impossible Fallout. Number 5, Green Book. Yeah, Green Book for me was my number 3. My number 1 was Quiet Place. Was my number 1 film of the year. Number 2 for me was Black Klansman. Number 3 for me was Green Book. Number 4, what was my number 4? Oh, sorry. Let me, no. Number 1 was Quiet Place. Number 2 was Black Klansman. Number 3 was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Number 4 was Green Book. Number 5 was Star is Born. That was my top 5 of the year last year. So very similar to yours. I love Green Book. I would have liked to have seen yeah, I mean, A Quiet Place wasn't even nominated, so there was that. So I would have liked to have seen Black Klansman win, but I was totally good with Green Book winning Best Picture. It was fabulous. Love that movie. Glad you had a chance, that you enjoyed it as well, fan of Peanuts. All right. Robert Perez writes, have you ever seen Red State? Thoughts? Yeah, not my favorite Kevin Smith film. Actually, you know what? Let me just make sure we're talking about the same movie here. Wait a minute. Is this the right one? Yeah, it's the right one. Yeah. Not my favorite Kevin Smith film. Not my favorite one. Didn't mind it though. I thought, look, it was for a Kevin Smith film, it was quite interesting. It was quite interesting, but not one of my higher ranked Kevin Smith films, to be honest. Courtney Hayes writes, WTF, I just learned that Howard the Duck was in the final battle at the end of Endgame. LMAO, I don't even know what to say, just had to share. Yeah, I had people telling me that, and through my first 3 screenings, I'm like, where's Howard the Duck? And then finally said, watch for the scene, the shot where so-and-so and so-and-so are in the shot. I'm like, all right. And then finally on my 4th viewing, I saw those characters come up, then I looked around the screen quick, and sure enough, there was Howard the Duck. So just a fun little Easter egg. Just a fun little Easter egg they decided to throw in there, which was kind of cute. I mean, look, I don't want a Howard the Duck movie. I didn't even like the Howard the Duck appearance in Guardians, but he was there, so to have him kind of pop up there at the very end, just as a little Easter egg, I thought that was clever. I did think it was clever. But yeah, don't feel bad about missing it, Courtney, because it took me up to my 4th time seeing the film. Took me up to my 4th time seeing the film that I finally caught it. All right. Artur Mansouri writes, over under 50% Toy Story 4 outgrosses Lion King. Ooh, under. I'm going to take under on that. I really do think Lion King, right now my guess is Lion King is going to be the number 2 box office film of the year. I think it'll be ahead of Star Wars Episode 9. I do. I think they're both going to be billion-dollar films, but Lion King may become, I think Lion King has a chance to be a $2 billion film. I really do. I think Lion King has a shot at being a $2 billion film. I don't think Toy Story does. So I'm going to take well under 50% that Toy Story 4 outgrosses Lion King. Yeah, I'm not going to say 0, and I'm not going to say 10%, but I'll take well under 50 on that. Javier Rios 405 writes, was R.I.P.D. really that bad? It was pretty bad. It had a couple of moments. But yeah, overall, I mean, even Jeff Bridges and Ryan Reynolds couldn't say that. It was really quite bad. Don't know what to put. That's a good username, right? Phillips confirmed today on Insta that Joker will be rated R, duh. And of course, many when next trailer, LOL. San Diego Comic-Con posted cool black and white picture of Joker. Yeah, I mean, look, Comic-Con would be a logical place. It was during Comic-Con last year that they confirmed the Joker movie, and they said it's coming out next October, and we were like, holy crap, really? So Comic-Con being like July, August, just 3 months out from when the Joker movie comes, Comic-Con would be a very ideal time to release a new trailer. Now, we know they're not doing a Hall H presentation, but that doesn't mean you can't drop a trailer. And they may very well do that. So I think that's probably a good bet. I don't know that they will for sure. I don't think it's a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's a pretty good bet. I'm looking forward to it too, man. I'm so excited. I've been excited for this movie from the day they announced it. I think this is terrific, not just because you got Joaquin Phoenix playing Joker, which is great, one of the great all-time comic book characters with one of the great actors of our generation, but also the fact that it's a standalone movie, separated from the DCEU. I love that, and I cannot wait to see how this whole thing turns out. All right, John Demoto writes, hi, John. Overall thoughts on the Toy Story 1 through 3 trilogy. Which one is your favorite? Third is still my favorite. Any Toy Story 4 box office predictions? Well, I mean, what else is there to say? Toy Story is brilliant. It's brilliant. Out of the 4 movies right now, it's got 398 out of a possible 400 critic review. I mean, we've never seen anything like it, nor will we ever see anything like it again. It's remarkable. I got to go with you on that. I think 3 is my favorite. Even though 3 is the lowest rated of the Toy Story movies, just a pathetic, weak little 98% instead of 100. What went wrong? So overall, it's brilliant. It's genius. I love it. I love the Toy Story franchise. Box office predictions, again, I think opening weekend, somewhere in the $150 million range. I think when it's all said and done, in the $1.1 to $1.2 billion range. I do believe the film's going to join the $1 billion club. So that's my guess right now. Suthius writes, Okay, Suthius writes, not a spoiler or anything, but just a fun FYI, if you will. The following words were mentioned in Jessica Jones Season 3, Captain America and The Raft. Cool, but again, look, all the Netflix series all did vague little references to the MCU, but they never connected to the MCU. That's why I always told people, for all intents and purposes, the Netflix series is totally separate from the MCU. But John, on a wall in the background, you saw the Hulk in the Battle of New York. Yeah, that's great. It's a little Easter egg, these little winks and whatever, but they were never in any real way connected to the MCU. Never in any real practical way. Why do you think that in Endgame, when Howard the Duck shows up, you don't see Luke Cage or Daredevil or Jessica Jones or the Immortal Iron Fist or the Punisher? Or why do you think we never see any of them? Because they were never really connected. The shows pretended they were connected, wink, wink, Battle of New York, wink, wink, but they were never in any real way connected. And, yeah, I'm not surprised they dropped little references like that. I'm sure they would, and they would have continued. I'm sure they would have continued had they continued on with being on Netflix. That's going to change on Disney Plus. They are all directly, practically connected on Disney Plus, but on Netflix they just never were. Lone Wolf X6 writes, Flash, Supergirl, Green Arrow, Nazis? I hate Nazis. Dang, John, Nazis got to ruin the Flash wedding. I liked that whole thing. I liked that whole thing. It's like, wait a minute, they're bringing Nazis into this? Led by an alternate version of Green Arrow? What? I really like that crossover event very much. What was that one called? Crisis on Earth X? I think that one was called Crisis on Earth X. Whatever. I really enjoyed that one. It might be my favorite crossover event that the CW series had done so far. And yeah, believe me, I had reactions like that as well. All right. Jersey Kid writes, took your advice and created a WordPress blog. Nice. I love reviewing films. Does it matter if they're new releases or rented films? Font, care about money, just want to show my passion. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Look, do it because you want to do it. And it doesn't matter if 5 people read it or if 50 people read it or if 500 people read it. It doesn't matter. You're doing it because you love to do it. It gets you more engaged in your own film fandom and lets you add your voice to the conversation for a few other people. That's all that matters. If you're passionate about an old movie, write about the old movie. If you're passionate about something you just rented, write about what you just rented. If you're passionate about a new movie that came out, write about that. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. It's just putting your voice to paper, putting your voice to podcast, putting your voice to you. It doesn't matter. Just go with it, man. Just whatever it is you're passionate about, you write about that. Because that's what ultimately is going to make sure you enjoy doing what you're doing. And if you enjoy what you're doing, other people will enjoy it more. If you don't like what you're doing, chances are other people won't like what you're doing too. But if you're liking what you're doing, other people will probably like it too. So that's my advice at any rate, just a kid. And good on you for starting up that blog, man. That's really a good step. All right, Suthius writes, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? You always said you'd like to start a family. Do you think you'll still do the show as a full-time father? If so, then happy future Father's Day to you then. Yeah, probably. Ann and I will probably start our family within 5 years. I mean, we're not in a rush to do it right now, not just because that I'm busy doing what I'm doing. Ann is fast-tracking her career with Hasbro right now. She's like a senior person at Hasbro. She's having a great time there, and that's wonderful. Which is great. But there's going to come a day where we're going to want to start. We're going to want to start to have kids, and it'll probably be pretty soon. You know, I mean, Ann is still in her early 30s. I'm in my 40s, so we're going to want to start soon, but not like this year soon or anything like that. So yeah, within 5-10 years, I'm going to be a dad and probably living in Canada again. Because I think, Ann and I had decided very early in our marriage that we don't have to have our kid in Canada, but by the time the kid is maybe 1 or 2 or 3, I want to raise my kid in my home. I want to raise my kid in Canada. And Ann's always been down for that. Like the first 10 years of our marriage will have been spent in the U.S. around her family. And then at some point, we're going to go back and be around my family. And that's always been the plan. That's probably what we'll do. And the great thing is I can be a stay-at-home dad and still do my show. That's the great thing. And I hopefully that I will still be doing a show at that point. Or maybe I'll be retired by then. Maybe I'll sell a screenplay that'll make me $1 billion. That's not going to happen. Maybe Ann will move so far up the chain at Hasbro that I don't even need to work anymore. Who knows? I mean, that's a great thing. I mean, the first 10 years of our marriage, I pay for her all of her education and I cover most of the bills. And now Ann makes more money than me. So maybe at some point, she's making enough that I can retire. I can just be a stay-at-home dad in Canada. Oh my God, I would love that. Oh, I would love that. That would be so awesome. But maybe Ann wants to be the stay-at-home mom. And maybe if that's the case, then I'll keep doing my show. We'll figure that out when we go. But probably within the next 5 years, probably I will be back in Canada. Ann and I will be up in Canada, and we will probably have our first 1 or 2 kids by that point. So anyway, that's what we're thinking. Thank you for the question, Suthius. All right. Cinefinity and Beyond. I like that name. A big parade for the Raptors here in Toronto on Monday. Indeed they are, and they just got back from Vegas. They went and instead of going home after winning the title, they went to Vegas and they stayed an extra day in Vegas. But you know what? Why not? Go party it up. Enjoy yourselves. You guys made history. That's awesome. And you damn well better bet that I'm going to be watching that parade. ESPN's even going to broadcast the parade. There's a fascination right now, actually. I'm finding, at least in California, there's a fascination with Canada and Toronto right now. And they're going to be broadcasting parade, and you're damn right I'm going to be watching that. I wish I could be there. All right. Dark Irewolf writes, "Hey, John, with Godzilla King of the Monsters now breaking 90 million domestically, would you still consider it an underperformed movie, even though it's not the same numbers as the other two? It's still bringing in a good amount." Well, I mean, I think the fact that it is lower than the other films kind of makes it an underperformer, right? The fact of the matter is, as of right now, it still hasn't broken even. They spent near $100 million on the marketing of this movie. Nowhere near what Endgame spent marketing. Endgame spent actually over $200 million marketing. But Godzilla spent in the ballpark of $100 million marketing that movie. They did a lot of marketing for Godzilla King of the Monsters. You add that on top of the production budget of $170 million. Now you're looking at a film that cost them $270 million when you count marketing. At the box office right now worldwide, it's made $339 million. But you got to subtract 1/3 of that, so about $110 million. So really, the movie's made the distribution companies and the studio $220 million when it's cost $270 million to make. They're still in the red. They're still in the red by about $50 million. They're probably, when it's all said and done, they're probably going to lose about $30 to $40 million on this movie when it's all said and done. So do I think it's underperformed? Yeah. Look, I always tell you guys, you can never call a movie a flop that makes money. I don't care if it made $10 or I don't care if it made $10 million or if it made $100 million. If it made profit, you cannot call a movie a flop. Simple. But when a movie loses money and a studio loses $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, $40 million, $50 million, you have to acknowledge it at least underperformed, and you maybe have to using the F word, the flop word. I mean, this is a movie that's going to lose the studio money, so I don't think there's any other way to look at it other than underperforming. When it loses the studio money, there is no way to not acknowledge that at minimum it underperformed, maybe even flopped. But, I mean, it all depends. A fan of Peanuts writes, A Quiet Place was my number 2 at one point, but fell to number 7. Hey, listen, it's great. When you can have a movie that you think is great, and you see other movies that you like even more, that it pushes a great movie down, nothing wrong. That means you had a good year for movies, man. That means you had a good year for movies. Stubble McShave writes, different opening months encourages illegal downloading. Oh, I agree. I've been saying since the movie blog days that one of the best ways to fight piracy for movies is to have global release dates. Now, I acknowledge there are problems with global release dates. Just because a movie will open well great in October doesn't mean October is a great month for that movie to open in another country. I acknowledge that. But I've always agreed that a global release date would do a lot to combat piracy. All right, final question of the day, guys. We've been going over 2.5 hours already today. Final question of the day. We're going to wrap up today's show. Lone Wolf X6 writes, John, you may not liked Prometheus on Arrow, but can agree the actor was great and had amazing chemistry with Stephen Amell. I thought the actor did a pretty good job. I'm not going to say he was great, but I think he was pretty solid. And I thought the chemistry with Stephen Amell was okay. I thought it was okay. Not bad. Not bad. It was okay. I'll say it was decent. But nothing like Malcolm Merlyn, right? Where that was great performance. And that chemistry on screen was incredible. Or Manu Bennett playing Deathstroke. He was great. And the chemistry Manu Bennett and Stephen Amell had together as Deathstroke and Green Arrow was fantastic. I don't think Prometheus was on that level, but I thought it was a pretty good performance. And I thought they had okay chemistry, but definitely not in the same league as like Deathstroke's chemistry or Malcolm Merlyn's chemistry. I thought that was just a little bit on a different level. That's my opinion at any rate. Doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean I could be wrong about that, but that is my opinion and how I felt about it. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you, or this was Open Mic. For today's installment of Open Mic, thank you so much for being here, guys. And again, thank you to all of you guys. First of all, to all of you who are Patreon supporters, thank you so much. Those of you who sent in questions today, thank you on 2 levels. Number 1, you sent in great fun topics for us to talk about. And number 2, you supported the channel and you make this channel possible. So thank you so much for that. I love our weekends when we just get to take open mic questions. That's always a lot of fun. Anyways, don't forget, the John Campea Show returns tomorrow. Robert Meyer Burnett is back in studio tomorrow, already working on a bunch of the stories that we're going to be talking about then. Make sure you come back and join us. That's at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow morning. Make sure you plan to join us for that. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks so much for being here. Gotta go get ready for my Dungeons and Dragons game tonight. Thanks a lot for everything. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.